The FTC case against Microsoft just will not leave the headlines as Bobby Kotick and Satya Nadella take the stand. There was a lot of focus on Call of Duty. They even touched on Game Pass and subscriptions with Bobby Kotick. Satya Nadella had some interesting responses and thoughts on exclusive. The next Nintendo Switch was talked about, and I believe I may even have a bit of a catch-22 for those insisting that Nintendo is competing against Xbox and PlayStation. I think it's an interesting pushback on what Satya Nadella has said, the CEO of Microsoft, and there were some Sony documents that were failed to be properly redacted. We got some good information from that. One of the challenges with this case that I have had is that we are relying on the transcripts of others. Much of this is being effectively live tweeted and put into summary articles later. Everyone is sort of trying to keep up with it, and it makes it very difficult to cover. It also makes it difficult to cover anything else in gaming news. So if you are hoping that we return to regular gaming news soon, I am in agreement with you. We wasted a good portion of yesterday's stream arguing about something Jim Ryan said about Game Pass, and it turns out a simple quote clarified it. The Xbox lawyers asked for clarification, and it resolved the matter. But again, this is exceptionally hard to cover in a good way because we're relying essentially on live tweets and people's transcripts. So I put all of the good information right here at the beginning. That way you do not have to go searching for it in the live stream. Make sure you hit subscribe and the bell button, and then stick around for the discussion if you like. More developments in the FTC case against Microsoft as Bobby Kotick takes a stand along with Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. We have interesting commentary from both of these gentlemen. We have info about Call of Duty, contracts, Game Pass, even the next Nintendo Switch. PlayStation even failed to properly redact some of their own documents, and Satya Nadella has interesting things to say about exclusives. I am of the nature of how this info comes out that it is a little bit difficult to comb through. Much of what I'm going to use for Bobby Kotick was just Charlie Intel live tweeting it. We do have articles and other references. There is a lot to comb over. I will give my thoughts at the end because I believe there's a bit of a catch-22 for those insisting that Nintendo is part of the competition. That way they can place Microsoft in third place. But then when you concede that Nintendo is one of the competitors, it makes Satya Nadella's comments a little strange. First, I want to look at some of the things that Bobby Kotick said and walk through that timeline. I also want to look at what Satya Nadella said, as well as those redacted Sony documents that didn't use a very good Sharpie, apparently. First, Bobby Kotick was speaking on exclusivity for Call of Duty. This continues to be one of the main focuses, is that Call of Duty and exclusivity is a major aspect of the case from Microsoft, and the FTC, I'm afraid, is kind of falling for it. Hopefully that's not the only thing that they focus on. Quote from Charlie Intel on Twitter. Bobby Kotick says Activision never thought of making Call of Duty exclusive to one platform. Says he doesn't think Microsoft would do it either, as it would alienate our biggest player base. This is essentially lining up with what many people have been saying up to this point. Phil Spencer said there was no model where they would do this. Jim Ryan believes that this strategy that Microsoft is employing is actually bigger than exclusivity. He expressed more concern over getting a degraded Call of Duty or also Call of Duty hitting Game Pass. Everybody's seemingly taking their eyes off exclusivity with the subject moving away from that. Bobby Kotick is also confirming that Xbox is the smallest percentage of the player base. Funny enough, mobile makes up the largest percentage. According to Charlie Intel, Call of Duty has 70 million daily active users, with primary platform being mobile, followed by PC and consoles, Xbox being the smallest percentage. This is one of the reasons that I have consistently said there isn't a universe where Call of Duty could go exclusive to Xbox. Now, I do think, however, with enough effort over the next 10 years, they could attempt to move this in line with Xbox's favor with exclusive pieces of content or early access. The CFO did indicate they're going to move towards a first, better, or best strategy with their purchased property. I don't think they would not do that with Call of Duty. Now, speaking on the subject of community size and where Call of Duty lands with respect to platforms, Bobby Kotick admits it was a mistake to not go to the Nintendo Switch. According to Charlie Intel, Bobby Kotick says he made a bad judgment in not bringing Call of Duty to Nintendo Switch, says that the prototypes of the console he used didn't convince him, and he didn't believe it would be successful. So he actually thought it wasn't going to be that popular because the system was kind of weak. But he said, quote, "It was a bad decision on my part. I think the Nintendo Switch has proven that you don't need tons of power. You can just have something that sort of wows everybody or offers a convenient on-the-go gaming experience in a market where that's very important." The curious thing here is exactly how they will plan to get Call of Duty to run on the Nintendo Switch. Funny enough, he said that nobody even consulted with him about the Microsoft deal to put Call of Duty on the Nintendo Switch. Microsoft's out here telling everybody, hey, we're committing to put, Call of Duty on the Nintendo Switch. They haven't spoken to Bobby Kotick. They haven't spoken to Activision. None of the developers are working on it. He said he heard about it in the news. Given his other remarks about playing Call of Duty via the cloud not being a good experience because of latency, I don't think they would put Call of Duty on the Nintendo Switch the way they have put other titles. Some titles have gone onto the Switch via the cloud and they don't get the greatest reviews. Bobby Kotick doesn't seem to think that's how they would do it. He says, according to Charlie Intel, he says he believes the COD dev team working with Xbox engineers could get COD working on the Nintendo Switch, which of course touches on the next Nintendo Switch model, and he has his own remarks about it. This comes from ShackNews.com. After an email between Bobby Kotick and Nintendo President Shintaro Furukawa was shown in court, Kotick shared that he expects the next Nintendo console specifications to have closer alignment to the PS4 and the Xbox One generation of consoles. There's also rumors, I'm not quoting Shack News anymore. There's rumors that it'll be able to harness DLSS. So many people were sort of hoping this would be a big jump in performance. Well, it will be a big jump in performance over the current Nintendo Switch, but it's not going to be comparable to the PS5 or the Series X. Maybe with DLSS, it could get close to the Series S and be considered a very, very good portable gaming device. Many people were disappointed to hear that it is going to be targeting Xbox One and PS4 power. This may be where they end up having to put the Nintendo Switch version of Call of Duty. I don't know if they can get Call of Duty to run on the current Switch. They have a vested interest, given its market saturation, but that limited power will be a certain hurdle to get over. Continuing to comment on COD's success, Bobby Kotick points to how pivotal PlayStation has been. According to Charlie Intel, Kotick says PlayStation's COD revenue is 2 times higher than Xbox's COD revenue. Says PlayStation being successful has led to COD's success too. It's kind of interesting when companies develop such a strong symbiotic relationship, what it means for the success of the franchise. With only 38 million PlayStation 5s in circulation, Final Fantasy XVI hit 3 million copies sold, rivaling past games that were on multiple platforms or significantly more PlayStation 4s. So it's interesting to see that Call of Duty also benefited from the rise and success of the PlayStation platform. This is another strong foundational reason why COD will likely never leave PlayStation. But also why Jim Ryan is concerned about the PS6 and the future with respect to features, optimization. They worked with Activision on DualSense features, and if Call of Duty is suddenly owned by Microsoft, they won't be able to have that one-to-one relationship for risk of letting out what they're working on with respect to the tech of the PS6. On that subject of a degraded Call of Duty, according to IGN, Kotick argued that Activision's developers wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do a degraded Call of Duty, saying that the vitriol that would follow from gamers and ensuing damage to the company would be well-deserved. Kotick also said that developers take pride in their work and want to make good games. Kotick has never heard of developers making a subpar game for one platform compared to another. The issue with this comeback is nobody truly believes that the developers would self-inflict this wound, but it may, of necessity, not be nearly as optimized and also lack PS6 features. In games like Call of Duty, if it's poorly optimized in the early weeks, that's not intentional degradation. That would be an emergent form of degradation. I don't think the PS6 tech protection aspect has been explored enough with respect to what that would do to, by default, degrading Call of Duty on PlayStation. I also don't think the current relationship with respect to features, like the DualSense controller, has been properly looked into. Severing that relationship would result in a degraded Call of Duty for PlayStation, and it would not run as well as the Series X because optimization would have to come after the fact. Sharing those dev kits and those tech intel pieces would be very damaging to PlayStation. Kotick isn't saying anything here that isn't readily demonstrable in the market. No developer is going to intentionally launch a bad game. Well, unless you're Redfall. But it also just isn't what Jim Ryan is primarily concerned with. Remember, Xbox's own CFO said they would adopt a first, better, or best strategy with purchase property. And why wouldn't they? In light of all of that, I don't find Bobby's comments compelling about a potential degraded Call of Duty. And then Bobby strongly corroborates Jim Ryan's comments about Game Pass being value destructive. Remember yesterday? Remember the previous stream where we debated that ad nauseum? Well, according to Charlie Intel, Kotick says he would not and will not put Call of Duty on a subscription service day and date at launch. Says he won't even consider it. Remember when Jim said they never proposed it to Bobby because they knew he wouldn't consider it? He just said, yeah, that's correct. I wouldn't even consider it. Quote from Charlie Intel, he believes subscription services that feature day-and-date releases has a negative impact on financial model, compares it to media streaming services today, and says that those companies are losing money on the services. Keep in mind, those who continue to ardently defend Game Pass, the issue here is day-and-date. The issue is not Game Pass. It's not having some type of a subscription model for your games. PlayStation has their own version of this. It's the day and date model that Game Pass has pounded on the drum so hard. That submodel is not automatically bad, but everybody is saying that it's damaging to value and it's damaging to money. Even Matt Booty's notorious email made it clear that Xbox was considering walking back day and date. Microsoft themselves have been reevaluating this as early as like when Matt Booty sent that email in 2019. Even Matt Booty's email points to this reality, and that was when Mixer was still a thing. Imagine how much they might be considering it now, given how much data we have on it hurting sales and revenue. Booty said that in 2019. That was 4 years ago. Obviously, since Kotick is against putting COD on Game Pass day and date, one might wonder, well, why are you agreeing to a buyout from a company that plans to put your property on Game Pass? According to Charlie Intel, Kotick says he wants the acquisition to go through and that 98% of shareholders voted in favor of his responsibility to the company's shareholders. And his responsibility is to the shareholders. So this is an interesting juxtaposition. With him in charge, he thinks day and date will not be something he ever does or consider for property like Call of Duty. But that's not really his problem if he satisfies his shareholders and the buyout goes through, and then he's no longer in charge of making that call. Jim Ryan even speculated in an email that if this deal goes through, Xbox could be severely damaged by this because many people will walk away. They'll take their money and they'll run, and you will have a logistical nightmare on your hands. They will suddenly lack oversight for the Leviathan company that they just bought. And really, Bobby Kotick doesn't let the subscription model conversation go. He actually doubles down. According to Charlie Intel, Kotick says Activision sees no positive business value or return in their games in subscription services. Kotick says he wouldn't take an agreement to have Call of Duty on Game Pass day and date because it's not good for business. Kotick basically says the commercial value, the price, for Call of Duty on subscription service is too high, and no companies have reached out at the price that he wants. Basically what he's saying is, you want to put us on there day and date, you can't afford us. It's going to be too expensive. Nobody's even come close to offering enough. When he says that, he's including Microsoft in that group because, historically speaking, it's on record that Activision has said no to Game Pass. So there has been negotiations, and they haven't offered enough. This leaves no room for an alternative interpretation, and it really puts the proposed merger in a new light, one that I have tried to draw attention to. Microsoft wants to outspend and loss leads to compete. Publishers and property owners in gaming are in large agreement against that strategy as well as against Game Pass. That doesn't mean that everybody's against it, but many people are starting to see the folly of that model. Netflix is a cautionary tale. So they're attempting to buy a massive chunk of the market so they can force those games onto Game Pass. If people can't see that from Bobby's own testimony, I'm not sure what else to say. In other words, Bobby has a duty to his shareholders, and selling to Microsoft is just too good to pass up. And this will, in essence, force Activision property onto Game Pass. This is not a hostile takeover, but it feels awfully close to one. And those hoping to see Call of Duty land on Nintendo will like the following news. According to Charlie Intel, Kotick says if Microsoft deal doesn't go through, he would consider Call of Duty on Nintendo as an independent company too. So he owned that mistake, said that was a bad decision, and he's saying, listen, even if we stay independent, this deal doesn't go through, we would still consider doing that. We would still consider putting Call of Duty on Nintendo Switch. But he clarifies that this isn't even in process yet. Kotick further says that no Activision team is in contact with Nintendo so far about the Microsoft 10-year Call of Duty deal. No development has started on it. So I wouldn't hold your breath. It's encouraging to know that he would do it even if the deal doesn't go through, but this thing hasn't even started. It's likely a long way out and potentially will only land on the next Nintendo Switch. And last but certainly not least, from Bobby Kotick, apparently high-fived Phil Spencer on the way out. That's really important that you know that. Now, that was not the only major thing to happen. Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, also took the stand, and we still have those poorly redacted Sony documents. So let's first look at what Satya Nadella said. It's a fun name to say, actually. According to VGC News, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella claims he'd love to get rid of console exclusives entirely. Now, this is making headlines for a variety of reasons. First, because it is woefully out of touch for what makes gaming platforms flourish, and it honestly betrays why Xbox has been failing. But second, it continues to further this false notion that Microsoft is just here to help consumers. They want to put games everywhere. No, they want to be everywhere. They want to get rid of exclusives. Aren't they the good guy in this equation? Should we talk about the ZeniMax-Bethesda merger instantly leading to in-progress games in development, or those being made exclusive almost immediately? How about the amended Indiana Jones contract? Talk is cheap, Satya. I don't really believe what you're saying because your company did not do this with its most recent acquisition. You didn't, put it out there. Oh, yeah, we're going to put games everywhere. We really want to do away with exclusives. As I said, talk is cheap. But wait, Satya's not done yet. More, according to VGC. Quote, if it was up to me, I would love to get rid of the entire sort of exclusives on consoles, but that's not for me to define, especially as a low-share player in the console market, that the dominant player there has defined market competition using exclusives, and so that's the world we live in. He added, I have no love for that world. If you've ever wondered why so many Xbox fans blame PlayStation for their woes, look no further than the CEO of Microsoft. It's remarkable how misleading this is. What he's saying is simply untrue. Sony's defined market competition using exclusives? Really? What about the Xbox 360 era, where Microsoft started the exclusivity battle with Call of Duty and GTA? I don't reference this to point the finger and say, well, they started it. I reference it to show that Satya is simply not telling the truth. PlayStation did not define competition with exclusives. Xbox did. And they got blown out of the water in the Xbox One era. It's all Sony's fault, apparently. It's been tiring. I would find it tiring to sit at such a high level at a company and continually point the finger at another dominant company for blame shifting. You're the CEO of the second largest company in the world. Sony's dominance over you in the gaming space is embarrassing, and the continued blame of Sony just makes it more embarrassing. The rest of what Satya had to say really centered around their commitment to keep Call of Duty everywhere. The tired red herring of Call of Duty continues. Speaking of Call of Duty, Sony accidentally revealed a whole lot about it. Now, I'm going to return to what Satya said, because I believe it creates an incredible catch-22 for those insisting that Nintendo should be included, because PlayStation, Nintendo, and Xbox are all competing. I can't wait to tell you how Satya just delivered up a wonderful catch-22 that really hurts their case. They apparently, in this Sony case, I need to come back to Sony. Sony apparently used a marker to redact documents that didn't successfully block the scanner from making the original printer ink reflective or visible through the marker. So when you look at the paper, you're like, oh, I can't see what it says, we're good to go. And then when you scan it in, the light hits it and it made the words visible. You can't make this up. Pulling from VGC again. According to The Verge, Sony's redactive document suggests that Call of Duty games were worth $800 million for PlayStation revenue in the US alone, and seemingly $1.5 billion globally. That figure jumps considerably when also factoring in Call of Duty players' average annual platform spending on PlayStation hardware, accessories, subscriptions, and services. Translation: Call of Duty players buy the hardware, the accessories, the subscriptions, the services. They spend a lot of money. They don't just buy Call of Duty. They're valuable, very valuable to PlayStation's revenue. Listen to this. The Verge claims the redacted figure appears to be between $15.9 billion, maybe it's $13.9 billion. They can't see because, the marker. So somewhere between 14 and 16 billion annually, every year, comes from Call of Duty players on the PlayStation platform. That's either in the game itself, accessories, hardware, subscription services, okay? This is why Jim Ryan zeroed in on a degraded Call of Duty. They can't have that revenue disrupted. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of money. Revenue disruption at this scale, between $14 and $16 billion a month. That's twice what Microsoft paid for Bethesda every year. You can't have that scale of revenue disruption. That would be absolutely devastating. So when he says we wouldn't recover, he's telling the truth. If you lost that scale of revenue to any degree, any percent, you would not be able to recover that money. Now, according to The Verge, this poorly redacted document also shows that Horizon Forbidden West apparently cost $212 million over 5 years with 300 employees, and The Last of Us Part 2 cost $220 million with around 200 employees. Now, some are weighing in on this and making comparisons to the $500 million that was spent on Halo Infinite. Now, that's an alleged amount with Halo Infinite, so I don't know if that's actually true. I've always found that to be just a hyperbolic talking point, but many people are drawing that comparison. Some question whether this was too low or was it exceptionally high. Robert Morrison, an animator for Ben Studio, whom I've had good interactions with before, we've tweeted back and forth a few times, seems like a great dude. He tweeted the following: why do major games cost so much to make? Simple math. 100,000 average salary, 400 people, 5 years, $200 million. So that's where the $200 million comes from. It's just a lot of zeros. It always makes me laugh to see that. It's like $200 million for a game, right? Now, obviously, in his equation to get to the 200 million, he's using 400 employees. Guerrilla was in the 300 range. Naughty Dog was in the 200 range. Keep in mind, he was just crunching the basic salary estimates of a 5-year development cycle. Some of these games landed in about 4 to 4.5 years. Also, don't forget marketing, research and development, and many other non-salaried staff expenses associated with game development. Now, maybe this is a wake-up call to all you entitled whiners out there about the price of games going up or microtransactions, okay? Games take a long time to make and they cost a ton of money. And when you want them at that caliber, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, okay? So wake up call. Gaming is expensive. In a glorious case of serendipity, this information comes out about 2 very successful first-party exclusives, Horizon Forbidden West, as well as The Last of Us Part 2, right? We have 2 very successful games that cost a lot of money. Now, if you take this and you contrast this to what Satya Nadella pushed for, it's remarkable. No more exclusives? Imagine how much more expensive these projects would have been if you had to build them for another system, and how much longer consumers would have to wait, and the likely degradation of quality because you have to spend more time on bug squashing and porting than just developing the game. The idea of putting games everywhere just being automatically better for consumers than exclusives is demonstrably ignorant in light of the facts. It's just PR spin to make PlayStation look bad and Microsoft look kind. Also, why not mention Nintendo, Satya? They certainly are kicking the snot out of you with first-party exclusives and exclusives. Are we going to reference them? Probably not, because deep down, you know you're not competing with Nintendo. You're just using them to conveniently constantly say that you're in third place. The last piece to come from the failed redaction papers, it paints Kotick's attempt to get a new Call of Duty deal with Jim Ryan in a new light. More from The Verge. The last game covered by the contract for Call of Duty is a Call of Duty title to be released in late 2023. Now, we've not seen anything about this. We've not heard anything about this, but we know that it's coming this year, and that's the last game under contract for Sony. Now, this is potentially why Kotick wanted to put a new deal in motion, just in case the Activision deal fails. It makes Jim Ryan's response even more interesting. He could have secured a deal, and he didn't. Now, he probably knew that that deal with Bobby would be contingent on Activision remaining independent, which means, listen, we can broker that deal afterwards. There's no point in talking right now. If the merger fails, we'll talk. If it doesn't fail, well, there's no reason for us to talk if it goes through. That kind of speaks to the power that PlayStation has. So, 25 minutes to get to what I think. What do I think? What are my thoughts on this? Many continue to weigh in on this, and they think that Bobby Kotick is trying to sabotage the deal. I don't really get that impression. I think he's balancing two worlds. He is in the position to make Xbox and Activision look good, make this look like a good deal, a non-threatening deal, because he does want the deal to go through. It would certainly benefit him and his company and his shareholders. But he also has to assure the shareholders that everything will be fine if the deal fails. I think that's why both sides of the aisle here see Bobby's testimony differently. On one hand, it does look like he's totally fine if the deal fails, but on the other, he does seem to be pushing for its approval. He did indicate that Activision would likely abandon the deal if the FTC is granted their injunction. Now, I don't think that looks the way some people think it does. That like, well, if the FTC does this, they're just going to walk away, okay? It sounds to me like you're saying, if we have to go through the regulatory process, well, we're going to walk away. Sounds like you wouldn't survive the regulatory process because this deal is probably not good for the consumer or the industry, and a fine-tooth comb would unearth that. Just a handful of days of testimony and emails, I believe, has already proven that handedly. Lastly, the remarks from Satya continue to be, I think, a brazenly false narrative about the battle between Xbox and Sony, and Microsoft's continued insistence of including Nintendo is something that backfires on this topic about exclusives. Nintendo has done remarkably well against Sony on their home turf in Japan and Asia. How did Nintendo do that? Well, with innovation, with tech. If you go back to the joysticks of the Nintendo 64, motion controls of the Nintendo Wii, and the portable nature of the Nintendo Switch. All of that combined with a very solid lineup of first-party exclusives. Sony is taking a similar yet different approach with the PS5. Innovation on tech with haptic feedback. Mark Cerny talking with devs prior to the PS5 production, the PSVR 2, and the handheld Q. They do all of this combined with first-party and third-party exclusivity deals. Xbox and Microsoft have no excuse for losing on these fronts. Nintendo and Sony don't seem to be struggling, and they're both indigenous to the same market. And be careful. If you want to push back on what I just said by saying, well, PlayStation and Nintendo don't really compete, you might find yourself agreeing with the FTC and their point about Nintendo not being in the equation. If Nintendo's in the equation, then Microsoft gets to keep claiming that they're in third place. But it doesn't really seem like they're competing. In other words, think of it this way. If you're going to continue to say that PlayStation has made it very hard on Xbox to win because of all these third-party exclusivity deals, then how is Nintendo doing so well? They're both indigenous to the same market, and they're both dominating. How? Well, they've invested in their own tech. They've invested in their own first-party property, something Xbox has demonstrably failed to do. That's why Xbox is in the state that they're in. It has nothing to do with PlayStation. It has nothing to do with third-party exclusives. If that were true, Nintendo wouldn't stand a chance. Those companies are both significantly smaller than Microsoft. So as I said, being the second largest company in the world, you should be embarrassed at your current standing in the gaming market. At the end of the day, this case continues to pull back the curtain on the gaming industry. And while some of it is eye-opening and exciting, it's also a bit daunting. The gaming industry is huge and expensive, and hopefully we don't see more mass consolidation efforts that would ultimately see that market harmed. So let me give you my thoughts and my conclusions. If there's one big takeaway from the recent testimonials of Bobby Kotick and Satya Nadella and the poorly redacted Sony documents, it's that Call of Duty is a red herring, but it is also a leviathan. And what is even more crazy, after learning how massive Call of Duty is, it doesn't hold a candle to King Mobile. Microsoft has continued to keep the FTC and the public looking at Call of Duty, as evidenced by the questions from the FTC and the focus. I will be curious to see if the FTC dives deeper into any of the mobile or cloud aspects of this deal. They've certainly touched on it, but it doesn't feel like it's the focus. Second, the continued insistence that Xbox is in third place and that Sony put them there with exclusives is just an unsubstantiated false tale at this point. You either admit that Nintendo isn't a real competitor between the three gaming companies, or you concede that competing against Sony is possible if you innovate your own tech and build a great library of first party. That's what Nintendo did. Nintendo somehow did this against Sony. Why can't Microsoft? Conclusion. I did not find anything Bobby Kotick or Satya Nadella said compelling in either direction, other than proving that Microsoft is happy to drive a false narrative about the gaming industry and their place in it. Hopefully the FTC and anyone looking at this can see the revisionist history at play, because if there's one thing history has taught us, it really likes to repeat itself. And that's the show open. Thank you guys so much for being here. Make sure you're smashing the like button. Make sure you get your coffee orders in. Do you guys like this shirt? Do you guys like the meme shirt? I am inevitable. I am Iron Man, the Batman slapping Robin meme. If you like this shirt, this one comes from Ripped Apparel. Use the shirt command in chat. You can even use the shirt link in the description. I'm going to put it there now so that way people can use that link. Shirts from like $14 to $25, so make sure and use that link. It will support me. And if you guys want to get things started, use that shirt command or gift some members. Smash the like button. Let's get the member goal up there. Curious what you guys think. I really do want to focus on what I believe is a well-structured catch-22. Okay? I really think this is a well-structured catch-22. If you want to keep banging on the drum that Microsoft's in third place and that Xbox and Sony, if you want to argue that they are in direct competition with Nintendo, then you look bad. You look real bad, because Nintendo and Sony are both indigenous to the same market, and somehow Nintendo has managed to go toe-to-toe with PlayStation. How? They innovate on their own tech. They invest in their first-party property. What's Microsoft do? Well, they cry and they whine about third-party exclusivity. They cry and they whine that PlayStation's made it hard on them. How on earth has Nintendo pulled it off? If you want to push back and say that, well, Nintendo doesn't really compete with PlayStation, then you just damaged so much of what Microsoft has been insisting on against the FTC. The FTC has been trying to say Nintendo should not be included. They're not really a competitor here. They're not competing against PlayStation and Xbox. So you either agree with the FTC or you concede that Microsoft sucks at gaming. Pick one. B-Nipple gifts a membership. DK Bager gifts a membership. We got a double whammy gifted membership coming in from B-Nipple and DK Bager. And Fonzo renews a VIP for 25 months and reminds people to use the coffee command. Thank you so much, Fonzo, for doing that. Sony cry about Call of Duty. Yeah, well, when you make anywhere from 14 to 16 billion annually from Call of Duty customers, I think you'd protect it as well. You call it crying. They're protecting their revenue. They have a financial responsibility to do so. They're not really crying. They're protecting their interests. Babbling Bike with 11 months. It's a VIP. Welcome back. Been a blast. Here's to the future. Thank you. Your happy face saying Xbox sucks at gaming? Because they do. They do suck at gaming. They're bad at this. It's so easy to see. That's not hate. Historically speaking, Microsoft's really bad at this. Look at what they did in the Xbox One era. Look at what they're doing right now. You think that's all PlayStation's fault? Really? Come on. How did Nintendo pull this off? Microsoft is crying? Yes, when you say, it's one thing to come to the table and say, hey, we can't have our revenue damaged here. It's another thing to come to the table and say, well, we're in third place because they make it really hard on us. Yes, one is clearly in the position to be like, come on, this isn't fair. This isn't fair. And not only that, fine, I won't use the word crying. Everybody's getting their Jimmy Russells about crying. Jiminy frickin' Christmas. Can we have a conversation and not be pedantic about vocabulary? Jiminy Christmas. They come to the table and run a false narrative. Satya's claiming that the dominant leader in the market established that competition's about exclusives. That's not true. That's false. Microsoft did that. Xbox did that. You want to act like competition, that's something that Sony started. They didn't start that. You started it in the 360 era. So nobody's crying. Nobody's crying, but they're going to say, oh, yeah, they started it. Satya's out here saying, yeah, they started it. Yep, it's all about exclusives. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? That you guys started this deal. You just got blown out during the Xbox One era, and now you want to act like it's PlayStation's fault? You can't use fanboy language and then say we are wrong for pointing it out. Okay. Allow me to just talk, extemporaneously and, during a show open. Golly freaking Gemini. Tyler with 23 months and it's a VIP. No Face Lord with a $5 tip. Stay strong, Lono. I know these anti-Sony Xbox fans are on your nerves. Really glad someone's objective on the topic. Running a false narrative is good business if you get away with it and accomplishes their goal. Morality isn't going to make you obscenely large amounts of money. Did I argue the morals of it or the facts of it? I didn't say it was immoral. I didn't say it was immoral. I said they're running a false narrative. Be neutral. You are not. You be neutral. You be neutral. You first. Nobody's neutral. Everybody acts as if there's who's neutral? Who's your neutral source for this? Tell me. Who do you go to for neutral coverage of this? That is a complete sidestep of the discussion. Instead of engaging with a 25-minute show open and monologue, oh, well, you're not neutral. Neither are you. So what, we're just all at a standstill? You're not neutral. He's not neutral. They're not neutral. Nobody's neutral. Let's just all go home then. Like, say something worth saying. Nobody's neutral. You're not neutral. So what are we supposed to do? Not talk? I'm neutral. I own all consoles. I own all consoles. I go where the games are. But I have a bias. It's like I think in ways about the economics. I think in ways about the history. And I say Xbox has done a crappy job. Like, that's my summation of what has taken place. Xbox has been sucking it up. They completely fumbled the ball with the Xbox One era. They've never recovered, and it's all Sony's fault. Sean Murray with the $5 Super Chat tip. This is not true. Sony started exclusive content when it was PS2, Sega, and Nintendo. But false. That's not what I was saying. Satya is making it sound like exclusives should just go away. You want to pretend that the Xbox 360 was not the era that made that incredibly clear? They did it with Call of Duty. They did it with Grand Theft Auto. Most of this conversation has centered around Call of Duty. Track the history of Call of Duty and try and tell me that Sony's the one that set these terms. Really? Sony set these terms? Do you want to know who really set the terms of how the video game market is today? Nintendo. Nintendo is the one that set the terms. They're the ones that tried to control all their third-party relationships. They're the ones that continue to protect their own first-party exclusives. There is no world where you can act like PlayStation's the one that did this. It's just a false narrative. It simply isn't true. Hypothetical, Sony buys Square, yay or nay? I don't see the point in buying Square. They're basically partners. A gifted sub from Joker. Exclusives should go away. I'll die on that hill. And so would the industry if they did it. How does the exclusive argument come in if they're constantly talking about Nintendo? That's what I mean. Like, where's your problem with Nintendo? Like, I don't understand. Nintendo's the one that did this from the very beginning. There is no world where you can substantively and evidentially argue that the market is dictated with competitive standards put in place by PlayStation. That's not true at all. You just are bad at your job. You guys really stink at this, and you want to make this narrative of like, well, they've made it really hard on us. Okay, how has Nintendo managed to survive then? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. Eugene says, Sony pays to make us small. Exclusives suck because we have to because of Sony. All said by the second largest company in the world equals crying. Yeah, it's really hard for me to not see the hypocrisy. Jim Ryan says, hey, that's a revenue stream that we heavily rely on. You can't disrupt that. Jim Ryan's crying. And then I say that the second largest company in the world claiming that, well, Sony pays money to keep us small, Phil Spencer. Exclusives are bad, but we have to do it because of PlayStation, Satya Nadella. That sounds like crying to me. That sounds like blame shifting. There's a big difference between saying, I have to protect my money here. What the frick? You can't have this. And somebody saying, well, it's all your fault. It's your fault that we're where we are. If you can't see the categorical difference between blame shifting all of your woes on Sony and Sony protecting revenue, if you can't see the categorical difference there, I can't help you. I can't. If Sony claimed, if Sony came out and claimed that, well, we have a really hard time because of Xbox and their dominance with shooters in the US, I would be like, come on, what are you making excuses for, Sony? Come on, that sounds like you're buck passing and blame shifting. Right, what Eugene's saying, a perpetual state of victimhood. Second largest company in the world playing victim. Oh, we're in third place, and Sony, bleh. Come on. It's weak. It's weak argumentation. They're not saying we need to protect our revenue. We make between $14 and $16 billion a year on that property. If you harm that revenue stream, that harms our business. That's not what Microsoft is saying. Microsoft's trying to convince you that PlayStation has set the terms of competition with exclusives. That is false. Don't you see? There's a difference between just flat out saying we make a ton of money, we want to protect that money, and literally running a false narrative about the history of gaming in general. Eugene said, oh, I already read that. Haven't exclusive been a thing since the start? Nintendo, Atari, Dreamcast, PlayStation? Right. That's exactly what I'm saying, Infinite. That's business. Suck it up. Plumleys, I'll say the same thing to Xbox. That's business. Suck it up. Suck it up. You got more money. You got more money. Why can't you make good first-party titles? Why can't you innovate on technology? Why can't you do that? Nintendo managed to do that in a market where both they and Sony are indigenous to their biggest market. They're both in Japan. JW with 5 gifted members. Thank you very much. I don't get that aspect of it. Devil's Advocate, how would an industry die without exclusives when 90% of the games we get in a year are third party? Because you would create a vacuum where no one would have as high demand for their hardware. So hardware sales would suffer, innovation on the hardware would suffer, which would make the game suffer, which would make publishers make less of them, which means they would sell less. If they're selling less, they're making less, they're investing in less, you'd start to downsize. There would be an absolute ripple effect through the market if you got rid of exclusives. Listen, I have no respect for that position, and here's why. It is demonstrably ignorant and stupid. Look at the history of gaming. Atari, Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation. You want to look at the history of gaming and say, let's just get rid of exclusives. I have no respect for that. It's just a stupid position. It's ideological and dumb. I know that sounds mean, but it's dumb. There's no way you can look at the market. There's no way you can look at Nintendo's saturation and their property and say, let's get rid of exclusives. Exclusives are bad. I have no respect for that position. It's ignorant. It's absolutely ignorant. It's not founded in anything other than ideological belief. It's not founded in facts. Like so Nintendo's just supposed to get rid of their power in the market and not have exclusives anymore. Mario's everywhere, Zelda's everywhere. That doesn't make any sense. Every other business does this. This isn't just a gaming thing. 5 gifted members from Ron. It's ignorant. It doesn't even land on the landscape of economic study or reality. Look at every market. Look at every company in existence. You can't get rid of exclusivity, get rid of exclusives. What are you even saying? If you say Phil crying, then isn't Jim crying when he says the deal would ruin their company? He didn't say the deal would ruin their company. He said we would never recover. And when you make 14 to 16 billion a year off of the Call of Duty community, he's not telling a lie. He's not even crying. He's speaking factually. He's saying if that revenue is disrupted, their failure to redact their own documents makes it very, very clear. They make between $14 and $16 billion a year just off of Call of Duty consumers. And if you disrupt that revenue stream, we won't recover from that. He's not saying, oh, we're done, we're dead, wham, wham, boo-hoo. He's speaking factually. You can't recover that revenue. Who gives you that number? There was one of their documents that was redacted. And the document said how much Call of Duty players spend on an average year for Sony. This is a Sony document, by the way, on accessories, hardware, subscription services, and other purchases. So every single person that buys and plays Call of Duty on PlayStation, they took all those people and they said these people generate between $14 and $16 billion a year from Sony. So they're not just spending it in Call of Duty. It's that these customers are incredibly valuable to our ecosystem. They spend a ton of money in our ecosystem. If you disrupt this customer base, we won't recover from that. That's not crying. That's just speaking factually. But saying things like, Sony does exclusivity to keep us small, or Sony set the standards for competition in the market through exclusivity, that is a false narrative. That's not true. Brett Williams with $2. Exclusives bad? Then why buy devs and publishers? Exactly, Brett. If exclusives are bad, why are you out here? Okay, if exclusives are bad, riddle me this, Batman. Right? That's true. Jim said we'll be fine. Yeah, he wasn't saying that the business will go up. Jim said we'll be fine, we'll be more than fine. So which is it? Oh my gosh. Spriggan. You can say, we'll be fine, we'll be more than fine. You can also say, we'll never recover. They're different statements in different contexts. In one context, he's telling his people, we will be fine, we will be more than fine. I think he said, we'll be okay, we'll be more than okay, was the exact phrasing. When he says, we won't recover, it's a factual statement. If you make between $14 and $16 billion a year, and a percentage of those people leave your ecosystem, you will never recover that. You'll never get it back, because those people, that's all they play. The fact of the matter is, the way those Call of Duty people work, that is all they play. So you can be like, yeah, we'll never recover. Are you kidding me? We can't make that money back. It doesn't mean they would go under. You're reading into it as if, like, when he says we'll never recover, it means, oh, they'll have to shut down and close the door. They'll just shut down. They'll close the doors. We're done. Shut the doors. Both can be true. We'll never recover that revenue. Are you freaking kidding me? The realities of this, the realities of how this market works, the realities of how Call of Duty people spend their money. The fact that you don't see those statements as being completely separate in what they're talking about. If I tell you, listen to me, if you break contract with me, I'm never going to recover from that. I'm never going to make that money back. And then I come and I tell my employees, listen, we'll be okay. We'll be more than okay. Both statements can be true. But both statements can be true. You can say both things. In one hand, you're saying, if you do this damage to me, we'll never recover that revenue. Are you kidding me? It's $14 to $16 billion a year. If you disrupt that by, 5 or 10%, that's billions of dollars. If you come over here and you tell your people, we're going to be okay, we're going to be fine, you're not contradicting yourself. He didn't say, we're done. We'll have to close the door. Guys, I'll get to the super chats. I don't like constantly having to disrupt the discussion and the argument to read super chats. Like, relax. Zippy Narwhal with a $5 says, let's say the FTC loses and doesn't get the PI. You think the deal is as good as done then, and Microsoft will find a way around the CMA? Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with that, Zippy Narwhal. They have their CMA case in July. Their appeal hearing is in July. Patrick with a $5 super chat. Microsoft wants to end exclusives, but they kept 3 games from PlayStation and partner with AMD exclusively for Starfield. It's okay when they do it, but not for Sony. Well, see, and that's the glorious problem with what Satya said. Satya Nadella is basically saying, I would do away with exclusives, but PlayStation, they're the ones that set the terms of competition. So what he's doing is, it's wonderful buck-passing blame shifting. We wouldn't do exclusives, but Sony over there is basically making us. We have to do exclusives. So that would be his response. If you said, well, hang on a minute, Satya, you guys just bought ZeniMax and you instantly made everything exclusive. You amended the Indiana Jones contract. You halted production of Redfall for PlayStation 5. You switched PlayStation 5 development of the Starfield game over to your system. You made all of that stuff exclusive. Why would you do that? I'll tell you why. He just told you. Well, it's PlayStation's fault. They're the ones making us do it. We have no choice. This is on PlayStation. Don't you see how that's more of like this victimhood, crying mentality of like, we're the second largest company in the world, but we haven't been successful in gaming because of PlayStation. That's not equal to somebody saying, we are protecting our revenue. If you disrupt a revenue stream of $14 to $16 billion, that would be detrimental to the business structure of PlayStation. That would affect so much. That would affect tech innovation. That would affect developer expansion. It would affect new projects, size and scope of funding of new projects. It would have reverberations throughout the entire company. So when Jim Ryan says we would never recover, he can say that while also saying we'll be okay. Like, when something traumatic happens to you, somebody can be like, you'll probably never recover from this, the finances. You'll never get it back, but you'll be okay. What are you going to look them in the face and say, well, actually, it's not true? Either I'm ruined for an eternity or I'll be okay. That both things can be true. The idea that you guys never allow for nuance, it always comes from the same side. It always comes from the anti-Sony side. You never allow for nuance. You didn't allow for nuance yesterday, and y'all got proved wrong, and you turned tuck tail and run and left the stream. All these guys in here telling me, Jim Ryan lied. Jim Ryan lied. He said all the publishers, he was claiming he spoke to every publisher in existence. Oh, ho, ho, what do we have here? Look, Microsoft asked for clarity, and it's exactly what I said he was saying. He said he was referring to the publishers that he's spoken to. Gee, it's almost when you're not grinding an axe and being really weird and insisting on rigidity in language to make sure you're making up some false narrative that when you remove that from the equation, it's like, wow. It's almost like Jim Ryan can say, we'll never recover from that, and we'll be okay, and both statements can be true. $10 from Reggie. Microsoft exclusives are bad, aka all games should come through Game Pass. Thank you for the $10. Human type person with 17 months in a VIP. We want to end exclusives, and you have to do it first. And then Ricardo Macedo renewed his membership. Ducks with a $10 super chat. I forgot who it was, but somebody at Microsoft said that he wanted to spend Sony out of the industry, and to my knowledge, it was leaked email. Yeah, that was Matt Booty. We covered that 2 streams ago. Hang on. Satya is speaking for himself, not on behalf of the company. He knows exclusives are important for the industry. He doesn't keep up with the gaming industry like that. That's the he's the CEO of Microsoft. What do you mean he's only speaking for himself? He's not only speaking for himself. Listen to the entire quote. Listen to the entire quote. He says, we would do away with it if it wasn't for them. I'll read you the entire quote. He's not just speaking for himself. He's posturing as if we would get rid of exclusives if it wasn't for PlayStation. The fanboys got real quiet yesterday after that. Yeah, when we found the quotation that proved Jim Ryan wasn't lying, all those morons turned tuck tail and run. You're going to do the same thing today. Oh, I'm going to run a false narrative, run a bunch of lies, try to get some clips, and then you'll leave or get banned. Like, it's so predictable. I'm not even falling for it today. I'm just telling you how it is. You cannot claim that a company can't say, well, we'll never recover from that, but they can't be okay. One doesn't automatically mean destruction. Not even Sacred Symbols had an issue with Matt Booty saying that. Collins said to him, that's expected and normal. He wanted to put GameSpot out of business. Yeah. Wanting to put somebody out of business, wanting to put your competitor out of business, that's not the problem. The problem is when you implement a plan that is anti-competitive. That's the problem. And Matt Booty said more than we'll spend them out of business. He made it clear. He made it very, very clear that Google and Amazon aren't even close to competing with us. The only one that really can compete with Game Pass is PlayStation. Don't you find it interesting that he pinpoints the exact area where they can win, and then they put that plan into place? I don't care if somebody looked at what he said and thought, yeah, I mean, ruthless, cutthroat corporate talk. That's what people say. Sony said similar things in the early days of the PlayStation. They wanted to put Microsoft out of business. Wanting to and doing it through anti-competitive means are two separate things. I can want to put your business under because I don't like you. Like, let's take, Jeff Keighley wanting to have Summer Game Fest flourish, and he said to E3, in so many words, I'm gonna put you under, whatever he said. Let's imagine that he said that. I don't know if he actually said that word for word. There's a difference between Jeff Keighley putting on an amazing Summer Game Fest and making it really hard on E3. There's a difference between that and doing it through underhanded, anti-competitive ways, like unethical ways. Like, you can want to put your competitor out of business if you do it through innovation. Like, look at what iPhone did to the BlackBerry, as an example. The iPhone disrupts the cell phone industry, completely destroys BlackBerry to a certain degree. BlackBerry insisted that, no one's going to want to do touchscreen only. They're only going to want a keyboard. I worked at AT&T at the time, and I said the same thing. I said, people are not going to like a touchscreen only phone. I was wrong. Apple was right. Apple was so correct that they completely destroyed BlackBerry. It seems they think not recovering is indicative to Sony as a whole. What you're saying is 100% correct. Right, like, to go to that level of the company, and people in chat were like, oh, clip this. Yeah, go ahead and clip it and just betray that you're ignorant about business and don't know anything. Like, if you clip that and think that's a gotcha moment that I would say not recover and will be okay, they're not in contradiction. You're just admitting that you don't know anything about the business world. You're just ignorant. Like, so many people might as well just put a sign around their neck that's like, I barely made it out of high school. Like, you're just uneducated. Like, you just don't know what you're talking about. At that level, a company of that size can both say, if you do that to our revenue, we won't recover. And guys, we'll be okay. We'll be more than okay. We've got other things we've got other avenues we can invest in. We have other verticals where we sell. We have other places where we're very profitable. But you can also say, brother, are you kidding me? That's going to have massive repercussions in our gaming division. You disrupt $14 to $16 billion of revenue. Get out of here. There's a storm rolling in. I hear the thunder. Hopefully I don't lose power. We haven't lost power much lately. Looks like it's just going to be rain. For the most part, hopefully. If I cut my hand off, I'll never recover from it, but I'll be okay long term, says Eugene. Right, another good analogy. Guys, do me a favor. There's almost 1,000 people here. We have got to have way more likes up on the board. Hopefully, it's not just a bunch of hate watchers. If you're hate watching, I guess thank you for helping me pay my bills with your I don't even know what you would call it, being emotionally unstable enough to watch somebody that you don't enjoy. That's just bizarre. But let me pull up the quote from Satya about exclusives, because I do think we're getting lost here. He was not purely saying that this is all about me. This is not about the industry. This is not about business. Listen to the way he phrases it. Just listen to this. If it was up to me, I would love to get rid of the entire sort of exclusives on consoles, but that's not for me to define, especially as a low share player in the console market, that the dominant player there has defined market competition using exclusives. And so that's the world we live in. That's the world we live in. Clip that. He's like begging. Asking people to hit the like button is like begging. Sure. You're begging me to ban you. Wish granted. He's literally saying, we would get rid of this, we would stop doing this if it wasn't for PlayStation. And the reason that I take issue with this, keywords, if it was up to me, yes, keywords, if it was up to me, attached to the whole thought. You're gonna rip that out and act like it's just his own personal claim? He's talking about the market. We can't do it because the market leader, the dominant player, has defined market competition using exclusives. Bro, that's false. That's not true. It's literally a false narrative. The history of video games is one in which exclusive titles are a driver. It has nothing to do with PlayStation. From Nintendo to now, every platform has done it. And you know what's funny? It actually is just mimicking other industries. Other industries do this. You go to fast food restaurants, you go to different networks on television, and they have their own exclusive content. There's literally no difference at all between what video games have historically done and what other industries have done. I have some super chats to thank. We are really hot in the mix, so I'm missing it. Wait, I don't understand. Vengeance did one, and it's not in my fan funding screen. I'm just going to scroll up. Hang on. What? What is YouTube doing? Let me reload the chat. I know Vengeance did a super chat. And it's not in fan funding. Can somebody get me a screenshot of Vengeance super chat? I can't see it. I don't understand. I have this new thing I can do on YouTube where I switch from the live chat to just a chat screen of super chats. I can't see his for some reason. I'm not saying he's right, but it's his opinion. He wasn't even around Microsoft in the PlayStation 2 OG Xbox era as this was customary. He seems ignorant more than anything. So the CEO of the second largest company in the world is allowed to drive a false narrative because he's ignorant? What, he can't read a book? He can't talk to anybody at Microsoft and ask about the historical trajectory of the gaming industry? You think he's at that level and he's just completely oblivious to the fact that this is not something that was started by PlayStation? $10 from Vengeance. I would love to see the end of exclusivity. I know it won't happen, but if it were to end, I'd want it to start with the Halo franchise. I want everyone to be able to play everything. Thank you, Lone Wolf, for snagging that $10 super chat from Vengeance. Vengeance, thank you for the $10 super chat. Listen to me. Vengeance, you can feel that personally and think that, like, oh, I would absolutely love that. Arguing for it and saying that it should happen, saying there's an impetus for it to happen, I'm here to tell you that position is just so not in line with any economic study of any reality, whether it's fast food, whether it's HBO, whether it's Netflix, whether it's video games. What do you have if you don't have something exclusive to your brand? What do you have? What are you going to sell your platform on? Features and power? You know deep down that wouldn't work. There would be a huge shift in lower demand for property. Also, you would practically homogenize the tech. Everybody would basically have the same box with a different logo on it. What good is that? So, you just homogenize the tech. Everybody's going to basically make the same box, same power, and slap a logo on it. Do you really think you'd get good hardware if you got that? If that was the setup? If they're all basically selling you the same thing? Why would that be a good thing? Risick coming in with the 5 gifted members bumps us to 18. Like, I genuinely don't think people think through the ramifications of if you completely did away with exclusivity, what it would do. Do you have any idea how long it would take for a game to come to market? How long do you think it would take for a game like Zelda Breath of the Wild to come out if it had to come out for the Nintendo Switch, the PlayStation, the Xbox, and PC? How long do you think it would take them to make that? How long do you think it would take for, game prices to skyrocket? Because your bandwidth, your needed bandwidth would increase, your cost per development would go up, your margins would shrink if you don't raise the price. Because it's like, well, sure, we're selling in more places, but we have to spend so much more money just to get this thing made. Risick with 10 more coming in takes us to 28. Even on a hot day, we can have a lot of gifted members. Guys, don't let the haters make you shy about gifteds. Don't let them win. Let them hate watch. Let them try to sneak into members-only streams. We don't care. They're nothing. Phones sell pretty well, even though they're arguably homogenous. Yes, because cell phones have become endemic to daily life. That's not a good example. But most people are not going and buying a cell phone because it's like considered a leisure extension of their life. It's endemic to your life. You need it practically at this point. A cell phone is not the same as, think of it within the realm of TV packages. The Last of Us on HBO, what? That's going to drive you to HBO. If that was everywhere, the price of those subscription services would go up because HBO would be making less money and getting less people to come to their platform. So they would have to charge all these other platforms more money to show HBO to recoup their cost. And then all these other platforms, in order to procure the license to show The Last of Us, they would have to charge you more money. Like, again, I don't think people understand the ramifications and the reverberations within the economic system of if you remove exclusives from every form of the industries that are available, you're going to disrupt everything. It's not as simple as, well, everybody be happy. Johnny Appleseed for video games, TV shows, and movies. That it literally wouldn't work. It's like I said, it's like an ignorant position. It's ideological. It's doe-eyed. It's like it'd be so much better. No, it wouldn't. And that's the thing. Satya Nadella knows that. He knows that wouldn't work economically. There's no way the CEO of Microsoft is unaware of how important exclusivity is. He's posturing. He's trying to make Microsoft and Xbox look weak and Sony look bad. It's not a true accounting of the facts. He, of all people, knows that exclusivity is key. Ask him about Windows and Microsoft Office. Ask him. 3 gifted members, Zinthos, Stonespire, Zinthos. You guys were trying to set up the layup. I know what you were trying to do. It still works. It still works. The 20 bomb layup still works. It'll be 51. We'll roll over to the next goal. Biggity with a $5 super chat chip. You're talking about first party. He was talking about third. Did he say that? He said exclusives on consoles. He said exclusives on consoles. He's not specifically talking about third party. He's saying it's not for me to define. He says we're the low share player. The dominant player has defined market competition using exclusives, and so that's the world we live in. You can't just remove intellectual property rights from the gaming industry or any industry. Ask him about Internet Explorer and how Microsoft killed off Netscape when Netscape was a better browser. Right. Microsoft, of all people, talking, bemoaning exclusivity as a problem? It's laughable. It's totally laughable. Ganks with 27 months and it's a VIP. I'm here for a long time and a good time. 27 months on YouTube, but 1 month away from 6 years of being part of the best community in content creation. Thank you so much. Of all the companies to act like, man, we would just not do exclusivity if it wasn't for PlayStation. Is that so? You just would totally be anti-exclusivity if it wasn't for mean old PlayStation. Why are you so pro-corporate over pro-consumer? Who said that I'm pro-corporate over pro-consumer? When did I say that? I'm pro both. I'm pro both. You're creating a false binary. I am big time in support of corporations making tons of money on their products, and I'm really in support of consumers getting good products for their money. The two go hand in hand, by the way. Imagine there's a local store that you really like shopping in, and there's some loophole that people find online, and they're printing off these Groupons, these coupons, and they're going in and they're clearing out his inventory at a loss, and it damages his business, right? And it goes away. And I get really upset. I'm like, man, the consumers just totally just cannibalize that guy's business. Man, you're awfully pro-corporation. No. I want his business to survive and make good money, because then I get to keep going back to the store and enjoying the store. So I want a corporation. I want a game dev to make buckets of cash. I want devs like Sucker Punch and Ninja Theory. I want them to make so much money, because then they're going to keep making the thing that I like. I'm in support of both. There's not some false binary out there where it's like, well, I'm pro-consumer and F these corporations. You don't know what you're saying if that's your attitude. Profit's not a dirty word. Like, there's this weird, like, doe-eyed, it seems uneducated, this sentimentality of like, well, corporations are just greedy and we need to get everything for dirt cheap. It's like, well, hang on a minute. If you're not willing to spend money, then don't expect a good product. Don't expect another product to come in the future. Good morning, Zero Day. Narwaffle says, the difference is Sony makes better products to do better. Microsoft wants to outbuy the competition. I can't believe people don't see the difference in strategy. It kills me, Narwaffle. That's why I trotted out the catch-22. If you want to strongly argue that Nintendo should be included, Microsoft should be able to claim they're in third place, Nintendo should be included, they are all in direct competition with each other, then you have to answer some very hard questions. How on earth is Nintendo surviving against Sony? They're both indigenous to the Japanese market. That's where they make most of their sales. And for some reason, Nintendo has somehow managed to survive in that market against Sony and its exclusivity practices. How has Nintendo managed to do that? that? Well, if you look at how Nintendo has managed to apparently and allegedly directly compete with PlayStation, they've done it by investing in their own technology, investing in their own first-party property to have demand for their product and their ecosystem. Xbox has simply failed to do that, and they want to hand wave and buck pass and say, well, PlayStation's just made it very hard on us to grow. You missed my resub? I'm doing the best I can, guys. Def side, 19 months at a VIP. I just want my green box to have games. Let's just be honest. Microsoft just wants to appear weak to get the deal. That's exactly right. That's my problem with it. They're not in a weak position. They made bad choices, and that's why they're in a weak position. Nintendo's even outselling Sony in many games. Exclusives matter in console gaming. Not accurate to say Nintendo and Sony do most of their business in Japan. America's still the biggest market for them. They have some property that sells better in Japan? They're indigenous to Japan. Most of their software sales on some of their property does significantly better in Japan than over here. Now, maybe annually I misspoke. Maybe annually, sure, they do better in America, but I don't actually think that's true with respect to total software sales of games like the Japanese RPGs that they play, or I don't know about Pokemon. They have pieces of their property and pieces of their products that do way better over there than here. So even if that's not where they do the best, it's still the market that they're indigenous to. They're both indigenous to the Japanese market. So how on earth is Nintendo surviving? I'm sure they have some pieces of property that do better there than here, but it's vice versa as well. Problem with we need exclusives is also the fact that Microsoft is on the extreme other end of the argument. They're putting AAA games on a subscription market, paying devs pennies on the dollar. No, I've been slowly working my way through Final Fantasy 16. I'm playing it an hour or so a night. I don't have a ton of time, so I played a little bit the other night. Not last night, the night before. I played a little bit, moved the story along, saw some cool stuff, got to fight a cool boss, and then I shut it off so I could watch a TV show with my wife. Even if PlayStation and Nintendo don't do better in the Japanese market than America, that's beside the point. The market's global. The point I was trying to make is, if you're going to continue to try to cite that Nintendo is a direct competitor, then you have to answer the question, how on earth is Nintendo managing to do well against Sony? How? They're both coexisting in Japan because, wait for it, they're not competing to fill the same market demand. That's exactly why I say it's a catch-22. You have to concede that PlayStation and Nintendo are not competing. And when you concede that, it hurts a lot of Microsoft's argumentation and it bolsters the FTC's case. Because you basically concede and conclude that the FTC's right. That Nintendo is not a direct competitor. They're not. It's one of the reasons Nintendo's been able to survive and do so well is because they don't compete against Xbox and PlayStation. They're in their own vertical, practically. They're in their own, like and when you concede that point, suddenly it becomes, we're in second place and we don't like being in second place. We want to be in first place. That's a lot harder of a sell, isn't it? Isn't it? To come to the table and argue, well, we should be able to do this $70 billion acquisition because we're in second place and we would like to be in first. That's not as compelling. That is an absolute false equivalence. How do the companies existing in the same market preclude them from the market? I'm not sure what you're saying. 50% of PlayStation users own a Switch. If PlayStation and Nintendo were filling the same demand, the numbers wouldn't be so high. Yeah, according to PlayStation's own documents, half of their users own a Nintendo Switch. They're not in direct competition with each other. Burger King and McDonald's both survive, so they can't be in the same market. No, that's not what we're saying. No. You're not tracking with the catch-22. If you want to argue that... I'm trying to formulate the argument so I don't misspeak and mess this up, because it's a long tail argument. You have to start all the way over here with PlayStation has kept us small with exclusivity deals and with exclusives. That's why we can't compete against them. The question then becomes, how is Nintendo doing it? Nintendo, in some respects, is kicking the crap out of PlayStation with market saturation and quantity of software sales. Many would respond by saying, well, they're not really competing with each other. You could even add to the question, how is Nintendo doing it? They're indigenous to the same market. They're both Japanese companies. So, if you move from that to say, well, then they're not really competing. Thank you for conceding that Nintendo's not really competing. You just conceded that the FTC is correct. That Nintendo's not a direct competitor, therefore, Microsoft's not in third place. They don't like being in second place behind PlayStation. That's the catch-22. You either concede that the third-party exclusives aren't an issue, because if they were an issue, then Nintendo would be in a terrible spot. Right? If they are directly competing, then Nintendo's somehow surviving without all those third-party exclusivity deals that PlayStation has. So if you concede they are directly competing, then you have to concede that somehow Nintendo's doing it and they're not getting those exclusive deals. What's Microsoft's excuse? If instead of conceding that, you concede that, well, they're not really competing for the same customers, half of PlayStation's customers own a Nintendo Switch. That's the catch-22. You either admit that they are competing and Nintendo's just a whole lot better at this than Microsoft is, or you concede they're not competing and now you're agreeing with the FTC. It's catch-22. You got to pick one. Neither option's very good for Microsoft. Neither option's very good for Microsoft. Both makes the entire debate very, very different. Because if they are competing, Microsoft has no excuse. If they're not competing, then the FTC is correct. You understand? Pick one. I hope people run with that. Run with that on your podcast. Run with that on Twitter. Ask that question of people. Is Nintendo competing with PlayStation? Yes or no? Yes or no? Are they competing? Well, yeah. Okay. Well, then Nintendo's doing something that Microsoft seemingly can't do. There's no excuse. All Microsoft has to do is copy what Nintendo's doing, innovate on your technology, invest in your first party, make your ecosystem appealing with games and tech. You have exclusives to your business? Yeah, I have members-only content. Sure. You can only buy Reforge Roast from me. Of course. 50% of PlayStation users own a Switch, but only 20% own an Xbox. It tells me exactly who you're directly competing with. That's exactly right, Eugene. Facts are facts. Half of the people that own a PlayStation own a Nintendo Switch. They're not in direct competition with each other. That's the point that I'm trying to make. I actually don't believe they're in direct competition with each other. But the continual insistence that they are, I actually think really hurts Xbox's case. Because, well, then you'd have to answer, why has Nintendo been so successful then? Nintendo's more family friendly. They have more titles that appeal to more women and young children. Sony and Xbox still largely cater to the edgy core gamer. Nintendo haven't focused on that for ages. Right. And that's exactly the point I'm trying to make, Spriggan. I'm trying to put people in a corner. The minute you start trying to argue why Nintendo has been successful against this just big bully PlayStation, it becomes crystal frickin' clear. Xbox got here on their own. They got here on their own. That's why I am so bent on this. I'm like, listen to me. This has everything to do with Xbox and Microsoft's decisions. They should not be able to just buy their way out of it and disrupt the market and consolidate it because they made bad decisions. Broken logic here is astounding, not mutually exclusive. Tell me where the logic is broken, Big Mole. Tell me. Tell me. I need you to answer the question. Are Nintendo and PlayStation directly competing? Should Nintendo be included so that you can claim Microsoft's in third place? That's the first question. Yes or no? Are they directly competing? Microsoft is really insisting include Nintendo because that lets us say we're in third place, and that's one of their main arguments about this deal going through is, oh, piddly old us, second largest company in the world, but in the gaming division, we just can't figure it out. We're in third place. Woe is me. Answer the question. Are they in direct competition or not? Do you actually think the FTC looked good, this court case? Most lawyers and experts I have seen saying the FTC has been a joke. You mean all of the pro Xbox people that have continually said that? Let me ask you something, Ryan. Are these the same people that said FTC has no power? Are they the same people that said FTC couldn't block this? Are they the people that said that the FTC wouldn't try and get in the way of this? Because their batting average sucks. Their batting average on this merger is pretty bad. I've heard for a year or more now that this is going through. Oh yeah, it'll be done April, May. It'll be done April, May. Lawyers? What lawyers? What experts are you referring to? Which ones? The blame shifting and the perpetual victimhood is infuriating, says Eugene. I grew up with them all. In my mid-20s, I had them all. I watched it happen. I saw it effing happen. It was not Sony's fault. And to try to tell me it is insulting. Yeah, I think that's the thing people miss here. You miss the forest for the trees. Many of us are coming from a history with Xbox, and we watched all this transpire. We watched all the decision making. We watched the Xbox One marketing fall to pieces. We watched you have to pull your gaming division out of the fire. And for you to be dusting yourself off and pointing the finger at PlayStation, it's insulting to our intelligence. We've been sitting here watching this all take place. I covered the announcements. I bought your systems. And to tell me, oh, this is because of what PlayStation does. It's insulting. We've all been here. For Satya Nadella to stand up and say, we'd get rid of exclusives, but, the dominant player has defined market competition using exclusives, so that's the world we live in. That's not true. You're lying to me, and I know it. And I'm going to call you on it. You're just flat out lying to me. When you read the emails between Phil and Ryan that were never meant to be public, only one of them mentions what's good for gamers, and it's not Spencer. Yeah, I think that the emails between Jim Ryan and Phil Spencer are very telling. They're very telling. It's very clear why Jim Ryan said, wait, whoa, wait a minute here. Why are you focused on one statement? Well, I didn't actually find much of what Bobby Kotick said. I went through Bobby Kotick's testimony. We have kind of gotten stuck on this exclusives thing because, listen, I really truly think that's a sticking point in the case. A huge sticking point in the FTC's case is claiming that we should not be including Nintendo. We should not be including Nintendo. This is a face-off between PlayStation and Xbox. You're not in third place. The FTC actually argued that Xbox would make skins exclusive and keep them off of PlayStation. What makes you think they wouldn't do that? What makes you think they wouldn't do that, Ryan? Do you know what the CFO of Xbox said they would do with purchased content, with purchased property? Do you know what he said? He said that they would move away from exclusives. You would see a shift away from exclusives, and they would go with a first, better, or best strategy. How is it that hard to say that, yeah, that would lead to potential skins and exclusive pieces landing on Xbox, since, I don't know, they did it with Call of Duty in the 360 era? Pattern of behavior, demonstrable in the market. Both companies have done it historically. PlayStation does that right now. Thank you for conceding the point. I accept your apology. Zippy Narwhal with a $2 super chat tip. Cat just shredded the CMA in a new denial. I'm not covering that. Allow me to properly research that. People have come in here all the time and told me things like that, and upon research, it's rarely true. It's usually hyperbole driven by a fan. PlayStation does that right now. That's the point. Yes, I appreciate your concession that it's a valid concern that you would consolidate the market and then continue to do that. In the wake of saying we wouldn't change anything, we wouldn't disrupt anything, you're conceding that they would. Biggity with a $5 super chat tip. If Xbox hasn't made any great games, why'd you buy an Xbox? That makes no sense. I didn't say they haven't made any great games. I never said that. I said they've been failing for 20 years. I watched it all transpire. I bought into... Track with me on this, Biggity. Imagine what this feels like as a consumer. So I leave the PC gaming market. Let me tell you guys a story, okay? While I'm doing this, do me a favor, smash that like button. Let's hit 500 likes. We're on our way to 1,000 viewers once again. You guys are incredible. Keep smashing like. If you haven't hit subscribe, hit subscribe. Subscribing is totally free. Consider clicking join. And remember to use the shirt command or use the Ripped link in the description below if you want to support me and buy a shirt from Ripped Apparel, as I wear what I thought was a pretty hysterical meme. I am inevitable. I am Iron Man. The Batman slap. Anyway. Let me tell you a little story. I got sick of the PC gaming landscape when Modern Warfare, Call of Duty 4, and Gears of War hit. It was going to require me to upgrade hardware, and it was going to be one of those hardware upgrades that was going to touch everything. I couldn't just get a new CPU. That's what was required. The CPU would change my motherboard, which subsequently would have changed my memory. So it was going to be one of those like ripple effects, and I didn't want to do it. I was sort of not in the mood for that anymore. I had built a PC in high school. I had built another PC in college, and that PC had run its course, and I was like, I don't want to do this again. I actually built a second PC in college. I built two. So I was on my third PC build, and I just didn't feel like doing a fourth PC. So friends of mine got Call of Duty World at War and an Xbox 360, so I got one as well, and I began my re-emergence into console gaming. Prior to that, I was a Nintendo home, and then I got into PC gaming with Quake and Call of Duty, okay? I know I don't look it. I'm 42. I literally went through the evolution of gaming, okay? From the Coleco to now, I've watched it all transpire. It's one of the reasons I find Microsoft's narrative just uncompelling and dishonest, because I've watched this all take place, all right? So, I get the Xbox One. I get the Kinect. I actually start my streaming career through the Kinect camera, all right? I build my audience around a single game on the Xbox platform, building up my Xbox friends list, okay? Now, one of the reasons I was able to overlook the lack of games or the bad state of Xbox during the Xbox One was because I primarily played one game, okay? I played one game. That's all I did. That's all I played. However, I started noticing there seemed to be better games on the other side. My brother let me borrow his PS3 so that I could play The Last of Us. That was a transformative experience for me. I thought I've never played a game like this before in my life. Then I saw trailers for Spider-Man and God of War, and I thought, I've never played a game like that in my entire life. Up to that point, the only real game I played close to Spider-Man would be Batman Arkham. So, I buy a PlayStation 4 Pro. And the reason I buy the PlayStation 4 Pro is, again, because there just don't seem to be games landing like that on the Xbox. And again, I'm primarily playing a game called Destiny. So I get a PlayStation 4 Pro, and I play Spider-Man, and I play God of War. And I start to experience a transformation. It's like, I really like these kinds of games. I think these games are quite good. Some of that's personal to me. I was getting a little burned out on shooters. I really didn't like PvP games anymore. I had played Call of Duty for a decade, and I got a little burned out, okay? So, fast forward to 2019. In 2019, Xbox starts marketing Project Scarlet. And it seems to me they're going to reinvigorate their console. They're focusing on 120 FPS. They're focusing on zero load times. They're focusing on things that I now prize because I had been playing Destiny 2 and Fortnite on a PC and had noticed that both Spider-Man and God of War gave me headaches because of the 30 FPS. So now I've gone through two transformations. I like these kind of games, but I really want better performance. I really want that 60 frames per second. I remember being at E3, I was sitting in front of the Twitch stage. I was one of the lead hosts that year. I got to interview the head of ID at Xbox. I got to interview the guy there for Modern Warfare, okay? So I'm sitting there watching this Xbox presentation for the Xbox Project Scarlet, and I'm convinced that Xbox is really going to change things. This thing's going to be amazing. This thing's really going to deliver. I see trailers the following year, 2020, for Hellblade. Hellblade's one of my all-time favorite games. Well, now you have my attention. Hellblade? Oh my gosh. Look at the graphics. Look at what they're doing. Right? I'm blown away. I think Xbox is really about to do something crazy. I buy an Xbox Series X first. I get it, and I wait, and I wait. Halo doesn't come out. It gets delayed. Now, in the wake of that, as they were marketing Halo, they got me back. Why? Joseph Staten. Joseph Staten convinces me that Halo might bring back the arena shooter. I think, guys, there's just something about Halo. You can go back and watch my coverage in 2020 on this. I was very much in Halo's corner. I said, they can deliver something. Trust me on this. No, I'm sorry, 2021. During 2021, I misspoke. Clip it, he misspoke. So in 2021, I'm thinking, okay, Halo could really bring something special. Yo, Alex Caldwell with the VIP. I'm going to count that as 2. I'm going to bump the line. 33 on the way to 50. And then something happens. Halo Infinite launches, and it just doesn't deliver at all. There's missing features. The multiplayer is in a beta. I found the reviews to be very misrepresentative of the product. They would take significant criticisms and issues with the game, but then they would give it a 9 or a 10. Okay? So, I become a little disgruntled. Why? I bought a Series X, and all I have to show for it is a half-baked Halo Infinite. I'm not a car guy, so Forza isn't helping me lick my wounds. Do you understand now? Could you resonate with my frustration to think that after all this time, the console that brought me back to the console world, that really sold me on tech and power and games like Hellblade 2, has delivered a half-baked meal called Halo Infinite? I devoted an entire month to covering the game, playing the game, and having community game nights, and it just didn't deliver. And in the year that followed, Xbox went to sleep. Xbox goes to sleep. Nothing. Nothing comes out. Nothing major. Nothing significant. And in that time, Elden Ring came out. Horizon Forbidden West came out. During this time, I've played Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. One of my favorite games. I waited to play Ghost of Tsushima on purpose until I had a PS5. Amazing game. Blew my mind. And then Ragnarok comes out. And you know what happens in that year? I realized something. Something's wrong at Xbox. Something's not right. And then they buy Bethesda. And then they announce, in the midst of all this, right? I'm mixing up the timeline a little bit. But in the midst of all this, they buy Bethesda. And then they announce buying Activision Blizzard. Yeah, don't forget, I also got to play Returnal and Ratchet. amazing games. Returnal was my game of the year. That's the transformative experience that I had. And it's all Xbox's fault. They did that. They are the ones that had nothing ready. They're the ones that overpromised on Project Scarlet. They're the ones that sold me a Series X when apparently the real plan was the Series S and Cloud and Game Pass and not next-gen power. I boot up my PlayStation 5 and I get next-gen power. Ratchet & Clank looks amazing. Returnal looks amazing. Ragnarok and Forbidden West look amazing. The Demon's Souls remake looks amazing. Spider-Man Remastered looks amazing. So, I go through all of that, and I'm supposed to accept Satya Nadella sitting down with the FTC and saying, well, you know, I would prefer to just get rid of exclusives. The dominant player has defined market competition using exclusives. So, you know, that's the world we live in. Then where are your exclusives? Where are they? Oh, I know where they are. You're trying to buy them. Because you failed. You failed to make a compelling lineup of games. You failed to deliver a next-gen experience. But it's all PlayStation's fault. So forgive me. After going through all of that, looking at Satya and looking at Phil Spencer and looking at this deal and saying, you're all full of crap. You're all full of crap. That little history lesson, that little story is why I can sit here and say, no, you're running a false narrative, Satya. Don't sit here and tell me how this is all transpired. I lived it. I bought your frickin' box. I watched your trailers. And I sit here with nothing to show for it. So don't tell me that it's all PlayStation's fault. Because you know what's funny? I also have a Nintendo Switch. And I also have some great games for it. It's remarkable. It's remarkable. So maybe that's why. Maybe that's why it's a little tilting to be called a pony. Maybe that's why it's a little tilting to be told that I hate Xbox. To be told that I bash Xbox. Maybe that's why. The only lawyer I've seen comment is Hogue. And I've not seen him say that the FTC is losing. He just had concerns of why they're focusing so hard on PlayStation and not the cloud issue. I brought that up this morning, Detective Seeds. I said, why do they keep focusing on Call of Duty? Focus on the cloud. Focus on mobile. I said that this morning, Detective Seeds, in my show open. I was like, why are we so focused on Call of Duty? It's a Leviathan for sure, but it's a bit of a red herring. That's not the main issue here. They want market control. I'm trying to get my knee to pop. The hate is real? Well, when you think in tribalism and you think in false dichotomies and false binaries, that's your own lack of nuance, education, and depth. You lack depth. That's on you. I can be incredibly disappointed and frustrated with Xbox and not be hating them because I don't exist in your false binary. You live in a fantasy land where I can't just be a frustrated and disgruntled Xbox fan. I must hate them. I must be bashing them. I'm a Sony pony. It's because you lack depth. You've become an NPC in a virtual world on Twitter and YouTube comments and Reddit. That's a choice that you're making. That's a choice that you're making. I don't live in your little virtual world that you've created. I don't. That's on you. That's on you. I don't know how anybody could listen to that recounting of my history with Xbox and be like, you just should have waited, bro. Games are coming, bro. Are you kidding me? Stand up for yourself. Where's your sense of self-respect? Where's your sense of self-respect? I have too much self-respect to be like, yeah, I bought a Series X and I got everything they promised me and I'm very satisfied with my purchase. No, I'm not going to lie to myself. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm incredibly disappointed. Where are the next-gen games? Best rant on the gaming space I've heard in a while. I always said I'd buy an Xbox again if Fable came out and was worth playing. Yeah, I just got to hold the line. That meme, like the hold the line meme, there's an element of sadness that I have when I look at that meme. I'm like, y'all shouldn't have to hold the line. You shouldn't have to hold any line. You should just be playing games and getting value. You shouldn't be shouting hold the line in 2023. You shouldn't be. That's a failure. That's a failure on Microsoft's part. The fact that it's turned into a meme and a hashtag and Aaron Greenberg tweeted using the hashtag, that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. What are we talking about? Are we talking about a relationship with a company that should be delivering value? Or are you talking about party allegiance? I can't tell the difference anymore. It's just weird. You're busy holding a line instead of a controller. Put that on a shirt. Yep, I watched a stream yesterday. Dick was talking the legality of the ABK deal, and people called her a pony, and she plays Xbox. Yeah, you can't win, F the cat. You could literally trot out undeniable facts and evidence, pie charts and graphs, and say, yeah, here you can see here what Game Pass does to sales, or you can see here why this is such an important thing, and they'll just tell you that you're lying. You're just a lying pony. I don't believe it. They'll call it hearsay or whatever else they can come up with. It's just so frustrating. If you're in the audience right now and you're an Xbox fan, you should be frustrated by this. Like, it's got to be really, really hard to be an Xbox fan because it's so easy to get lumped in with the fanatics. It's so easy to get lumped in with the fanboys, and it's like you're like, I'm not a fanboy. I've just been waiting for some games, and you're afraid to speak up. Think about the reality of what we're facing. You guys right now in chat, some of you are Xbox fans, and it's got to be really frustrating to be like, well, if I speak up and I'm critical or I complain, I'm going to be told that I'm not holding the line. I'm going to be told that I'm a pony. I'm going to be told that I'm a hater. Like, you're literally stuck. You're literally stuck. You either hold the line and don't feel like you're being true to yourself, or you speak up and get attacked. That's how they maintain this weird cult-like thing. It's nobody that likes Xbox and has an Xbox feels like they can say anything. I primarily built this channel in its beginning stages with games like Halo and New World, a PC game, an MMO, and Halo, an Xbox title, when I moved to this channel. But people will tell me, oh, he grew his channel bashing on Xbox. And it's just like, yes, because you're too immature and insecure to hear somebody be critical of a plastic box in your living room. So you have to name call me. You have to denigrate me and anybody else who speaks up. It's anti-consumer behavior. That's the grand irony, isn't it, Brap? Isn't it? To be cheering for the side that you claim is so pro-consumer, and yet your attitude, your demeanor, and your behavior is the exact opposite. It's anti-consumer. You don't care what happens to the consumer. You don't care what happens to value. You're cheering for green. You're cheering for Game Pass. You're holding the line. You shouldn't be holding the line. You should be demanding better. There's a difference. Stop holding the line and start drawing some. That's my message. Stop holding the line. Start drawing some lines. Start having some standards and some requests. Insist on something. You take what you get and act like it's fine, no matter what. William Lewis with a $2 super chat tip. What do you think was the worst PlayStation first party exclusive? The worst? I'm late to PlayStation. That's what people don't understand. King's a good person. I'm not talking about who he is as a person. He seems like a nice fellow. He seems like a funny dude. I'd probably enjoy talking with him. But I would also say, stop holding the line. Start drawing some. I'm fed up, brother. Like, I'm sitting here with an Xbox Series X with a longer history with the Xbox ecosystem saying, I do not feel like I got anything I was promised. I'm angry, I'm disappointed, and if I say anything about it, I get labeled a pony. I feel like that. What's it called? I feel like I'm being called, what's it called, a scab? When someone's on strike and you go to work anyway, isn't that what that's called? I feel like that's what's happening. It's like, well, because I won't do what you're doing, I'm somehow the enemy. It's called a scab, right? Yeah. That's what I feel like this is. It's like, don't you dare break from the party line or you're going to get labeled. I think this is true. This is a total genuine moment I'm giving you. I was shocked and bewildered by the way that I was treated when I started covering the Activision Blizzard deal. It blew my mind. Do you want to know why? Internally, I always pictured myself as being more of an Xbox guy. I always thought of myself in that way. That internally, I was like, what's happening? What's going on? I've always done this. Like, I played Destiny, and I loved it, and I was always very critical of it. I always demanded it be better. And I picture myself as an Xbox guy, and I'm asking for better. I'm saying, what are y'all doing? Wait, $70 billion on this? But invest in your own property. Where are the games? And all of a sudden, I get lumped in as a pony. And I'm like, I don't understand what's happening. It totally took me by surprise. I don't think I responded to it all that well. I responded and I lashed back out at people and I would take cheap shots. And I didn't like what it was doing to me. So I just blocked all those people. I don't pay any attention to them anymore. And the reason I get fired up here is it's like, man, I'm just trying to cover this. And I'm sitting here looking at the narrative from Microsoft, and I'm like, you can't sell me that bill of goods. You already sold me one. You can't sell me another bill of goods, another bill of lies. You already did it once. Don't you always use an Xbox controller when you game on PC? Yeah, it's sitting right here. This is the controller in the house that doesn't have stick drift. And that's not unique to Xbox, by the way. You get stick drift on the other controllers because they all use the same joystick provider. They need to go to the frictionless magnet one that doesn't ever get stick drift. I don't know if they're ever going to be able to do that. The production lines for controllers are probably too established. It's going to be a painful choice when they finally have to make that change. So, but yes, I do prefer Xbox controller. I do. Oops. Oh, somebody asked me what I thought was the worst PlayStation first-party exclusive. Here's another thing people don't realize about me. I was really, really late to the PlayStation ecosystem, so I don't have a lot of experience with their games. I don't. Metal Gear Solid and other PlayStation titles like Uncharted. My first Uncharted was Uncharted 4. My first God of War was 2018. My first Ratchet and Clank was Rift Apart. I am such a latecomer. I am. You know what's amazing is no one's ever given me grief about that and told me that I'm not a true fan. That's been refreshing. Sometimes people feel like this sense of, oh, you missed out. Those were such great games. You missed out. But no one's ever acted like I'm not a true fan because I came late. But I came late, bro. I literally had to borrow a PlayStation 3 to play Last of Us. That's good, Fuzzy. That's good. I love Destiny. I'm very critical of it, especially now. It's one of my favorite games, and I have to recognize Bungie's decisions lately have been bad and stupid. Brother, I did that for half a decade. It's how I've always run my content. Nobody gets a pass. Nobody gets a pass. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your brand is, what your game is. Nobody gets a pass. I've always been that way. You're missing out. Well, Enjoy, here's the thing. I can't go back and play old games. I'm not a snob. You have baked in standards that you really can't shed. Why were you so late to the game? Because I lived on Xbox. I was a Nintendo family, and then I went to PC gaming. And then I got out of PC gaming, and I got into the 360 when World at War came out for Call of Duty. Call of Duty World at War. So I kind of ping-ponged around. I was never, like, firmly planted in an ecosystem. And then I spent most of my time on Xbox. It's one of the reasons I'm so frustrated, because it's like, I love my Series X. I do. My daughter beat Hi-Fi Rush. Like, Game Pass is awesome when it's not so focused on big titles and day and date. Game Pass is awesome for other reasons. Same reason PS Plus is awesome. There's games on there my son has played. Right? So there's always so much nuance to these topics, and sadly the nuance gets lost in the bluster and in the fights and in the clip sniping and the bottom feeding grifter trash on YouTube that want to rip comments out of context because they can't make their own content, right? All that gets lost because, well, surely you only mean this one narrow thing so we can either make fun of you, call you a name, or, you know, make ourselves feel better about ourselves. All these people with deep-seated inferiority complexes constantly have to chop others down because they sense the universe is in balance, and that's their only way to reassert balance and power. Like, that's why this conversation always goes this way. It's just, we can't just talk about the subject. It's so deeply integrated and personal for people. It's just, and I try my absolute best to tell people that's not the issue. You can't do that. That's not the real issue. That's not the real problem. This isn't fanboyism. This facts over fanboy. No, facts over fandom. I want that on a shirt. Facts over fandom. That's the motto here, man. Like, just stick to the facts. That's why when I read through Satya's comments, I just couldn't help but say, that's bull, man. That's bull, and you know it. You know that's not true. And my catch-22 with the Nintendo, why? I just can't see the logic breakdown. I can't unsee it once I see it. I'm like, that's a logical breakdown. If you're directly competing with Nintendo and PlayStation's directly competing with Nintendo, then Nintendo is proof positive that you can be successful in this market, and yet you failed to do it. Nobody with 15 months and it's a member plus. Welcome back. This has been a stream of shirt designing. He's been saying that since he took over Microsoft, though. It's how he works. He has no business commenting on exclusivity. He doesn't. You work for you work for Microsoft. You don't get to talk about exclusivity being bad for the market. It's literally your company's brand. Like, that's how you've gotten to market dominance. Get out of here with that. Imagine being the CEO of Microsoft and being against exclusivity. You're standing on a Leviathan-sized company that built itself on that principle. Get the frick out of here with your nonsense. William Lewis with a $5 Super Chat tip. I'm late to the PlayStation Game 2. PlayStation 4 Pro is my first. Okay, so we have that in common. I play multiplayer mainly. Family is all on the Xbox. I realize I missed out on a lot now. Now multiplayer is Xbox and single player is PlayStation. I actually love Microsoft's Xbox's ecosystem, and their software is so much better. I can't stand PlayStation's interface. I freaking hate it. It's awful. And the multiplayer and the party system, it's all terrible. I much prefer, if I could run, like, if I could click a button and make my PlayStation, like, UI, if I could make it look like the Xbox, I would. I would do that in a heartbeat. It's just, that's where Microsoft shines, right? Software and UI, obviously they're going to be better at that because of their history. Derek Strickland says, the last few days have taught us important lessons. Both Xbox and PlayStation value exclusivity in their own ways. These aims are similar. Provide content diversity to attract consumers. Sony wants to sell consoles and games. PS5s are sold at a profit. Microsoft primarily wants to sell games and services. Xbox consoles are sold at a loss. However, Microsoft really wants to sell Series S models. These consoles lock players into a digital ecosystem, which is the main goal. The real question remains, is Microsoft capable of using Activision primarily or even solely as a way to extend multi-platform reach, including to competitor platforms? Or will Microsoft use its $70 billion acquisition as a way to differentiate its platform content and services from its rival competitor? I think it's a bit of both. Microsoft intends to keep Call of Duty and existing games franchises on all platforms they already are. That makes sense on a business level in terms of recurring revenue. It also allows growth in services by bringing COD and other Activision Blizzard games to Xbox Game Pass. But in terms of content platform diversification, Activision Blizzard offers tremendous potential for Microsoft to attract users to new kinds of content. I think we will see some ABK games go Xbox exclusive, just not the ones that already exist. Maybe something like Blizzard's new IP. I think Blizzard may be the main unit that answers the content differentiation goal. Activision's unit will be focused on Call of Duty and may even be able to help align other franchises along the way, maybe something like Halo. That assumes they have the time and the resources to do so. The mobile ambitions are harder to predict. King is huge and consistent, but King isn't worth the totality of the $70 billion. Activision and Blizzard's core mobile games weren't even developed in-house. Warzone 2 isn't out yet, and that's a native game being developed in-house. The game's success could be a big indicator on the future of AB's mobile initiatives. I think that's a really, really good paragraph. Really good take. The CMA tried to delay the Microsoft appeal hearing until October yesterday after the judge had already marked July 28th. The CAT has responded almost immediately a day later with a resounding no, saying it would be contrary to justice and fairness. Oh, is that why somebody came in and said the CAT shredded the CMA? You mean they denied their extension request? Ooh. They shredded them. Xbox UI uses their box theme, boxes everywhere. Yeah, I actually happen to like it. I missed it. Who wrote that paragraph? His name is Derek Strickland. I believe he's like the chief editor for Tweaktown. Is that what it is? Let me make sure. Tweaktown's PR and gaming editor. I think he's quite good. I follow him on Twitter. I feel like he's done a pretty good job keeping up with everything. Read the official document. He did shred them. Okay. The difference between me and you is I don't really give a crap about the CMA. Oh no, the CMA got shredded, according to people who cheer for Xbox. It's always that hyperbolic language. FTC's getting roasted. CMA got shredded. Let me ask you something. I'm curious about this, actually. Not Tweet Town. Tweak with a K. Tweaktown. Like to tweak something. Let me ask you something about the CMA. All you guys that just really, really go hard for Xbox. Let me ask you a question. If the CMA is so in error about their conclusions, does that make Sony correct? Because Sony said they were in error. Sony submitted a pretty lengthy document citing numerous errors in the model that they used. CMA, if they're so in error, what about their conclusions about console competition? What about that? Oh, did they get that right? Did they? I mean, I'm just curious. If the CMA is so stupid and dumb and they don't know what they're talking about and they're so in error, then is Sony correct in their pushback saying that the CMA's conclusion about console was in error? They pointed out a lot of errors in the model. Do you have any thoughts on that? I'm just curious. Do you only cherry pick when they're stupid and don't know what they're talking about as it suits your narrative? I'm just curious. Their findings are not mutually exclusive? Well, I've just found the commentary about the CMA to be very interesting. Because, when their provisional findings found that there wasn't going to be a disruption of console competition, everybody thought, yeah, man, deal's closing. A couple weeks go by, and they say, well, we moved to cloud, we examined cloud, and we think cloud is an emerging market, and we want it to emerge from market impacts, and we don't think this level of global oversight, as well as this level of consolidation, would be good for this emerging market. Oh, but now they're stupid and don't know what they're talking about. Got it. Just checking. They only know what they're talking about when they agree with you. When they disagree with you, they're stupid and they don't know what they're talking about. They're getting shredded and they're clueless. I'm just trying to keep up with the... You're allowed to agree and disagree with different points. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. That's fine. You could say, I don't agree with their conclusions about cloud. That's fine. That's not what I'm pushing on. I'm pushing on the calling them dumb, stupid, they don't know what they're talking about. CMA themselves admitted they could regulate it, so they're not doing their job. No, that's a fundamental misunderstanding of what they said. They're not refusing to do their job. Regulators have to decide what's best for the market, right? What's the best net outcome here? What's going to lead to the healthiest market? And when they concluded that this market hasn't emerged, and if we approve this deal, number one, we're going to give an advantage to somebody who already has a lead. And we believe that this market should emerge and be shaped by market impact. The global oversight and regulation required, again, remember, CMA doesn't have global oversight. They oversee their own governance. So they would have to have global oversight of this. That would be considered an overreach, would it not? So then they would probably have to work in tandem with other regulators to successfully globally regulate the cloud market as it emerges. And they concluded that that would be bad for the cloud market. You have to argue against that. You can't just say they're lazy or they won't do their job. That's just platitudinous name-calling. Like, what's wrong with that logic? What's wrong with that argumentation? The people that pushed back against the CMA and said, well, that's not really fair. The cloud market's not really established yet. Yeah, that's literally their argument. What else do you got? So it's a global market. There goes another of the FTC's market definitions. The FTC could be considering their own market. They could be considering their own United States economy. That's another thing that gets lost in this. Is the FTC may be defining things for their own case because that's what they're in charge of. That doesn't mean that the CMA is suddenly wrong. The CMA is basically saying this would require global oversight because cloud will become endemic to what we do. It already is with respect to cloud services. The way your phone backs itself up, the way that things are saved, the way that things are backed up for your computer, your phone, everything. The cloud is already endemic to what we do. It will become endemic to gaming. Oh, cloud isn't a separate market is the argument? Okay, but is that what he was saying a second ago, pushing back on what I was saying? Just because the CMA argued one point doesn't mean the FTC is going to agree and argue the exact same point. They're different regulatory bodies with different scopes of vision of like what they should be looking at. I don't even know if the CMA was saying this is a global market. They were saying this would require global oversight and global regulation. The government trying to control an emerging market before oversight is necessary is in itself worrying. How are they trying to control it? What are you talking about, D-Tom? That's such a weird, false view of it. What are you talking about? They're not trying to control it. That's the opposite of what they're trying to do. The CMA is saying, we don't want to control this. We want market impacts to dictate the formulation of this. It's the antithesis of control. What a false frame. That's such a false framing. They're not trying to control it. They're trying not to. Their conclusion was, we don't want to dictate what happens here. Market impact should. We want to be hands off with the emerging market. It's a good posture for a regulator to take. I disagree. They consider all Game Pass users as cloud users, which is false. Only a fraction of Game Pass users use the cloud. Okay, so that would get down into the error argumentation, which that will be in the appeals process, and we'll see if there's merits to their pushback. There could be merits to the pushback on that. Do you want to know why I think that? I found Sony's pushback to be compelling. There were errors in the CMA's conclusions about console. It stands to reason that there could be errors in their conclusions about cloud as well. You don't need to keep copy and pasting, Ryan. For frick's sake, get a clue. Look at the chat. You put the same message in the chat 4 times. Like, wait a little bit before reposting. My gosh. Like, I get wanting to repeat your point so I see it, but look at the chat and let your chat leave before doing it again. It's just calm down. I'm doing my best to read what you're saying. The language has been used that anyone who has passed this deal is dumb and don't know what they're talking about. I argued that they didn't do their due diligence. I don't think they did their due diligence. It's been a week, and look at all the FTCs uncovered. Why didn't we see these emails a while ago? My wife sent me a meme. Parenthood is hearing a noise at 3 a.m. and hoping it's an intruder and not your kid getting up again. Yesterday showed that last year Xbox and PlayStation were neck and neck in the U.S. In what way, Eugene? What are you referring to specifically? Like total sales, total revenue, total profit, Call of Duty? Our closing arguments today. I don't know. I'm not sure. Today is a couple more people, isn't it? Oh, total console sold. Why would you think that the EU would not do its own due diligence? That's a bizarre take. They have taken Microsoft to town over loads of things. Why would I think that they didn't do their due diligence? Because they didn't uncover anything the FTC uncovered. What the frick are you doing as a regulatory body if you didn't uncover any of the stuff that we're seeing right now? What the frick were you doing? Is the FTC just that much better? The FTC's stupid. The FTC has no power. The FTC doesn't know what they're doing. The FTC always loses. And in a matter of a week's time, we've seen a litany of things that none of the other regulatory bodies saw or uncovered. Of course I can conclude. You didn't do your due diligence. You didn't find any of this? You didn't have questions about any of this? How do you know they didn't? We have the public documents, homie. They would have asked the questions. They would have made requests. They would have inquired. Why are you saying these things? have all of the public documents. Why didn't they inquire about any of this stuff? Why is the FTC the only? Is it a matter of legal practice? Did they uncover all this and we weren't allowed to see it? Maybe that's the case. Maybe they did their due diligence. I would argue if they looked at all this stuff and said, it's fine. It's like, I don't know how you can look at any of these emails and be like, yeah, this is totally fine. We have a company privately admitting to wanting to do outspend loss lead strategy. And you're like, yeah, that's fine. That won't affect competition. DK Bager with another gifted member. This man's always poking the gifted member count. They wouldn't make them public without it being in court. They made plenty of their findings public. They made plenty of the documents public. We saw a lot of stuff. Don't you think it's interesting? Don't you think it's interesting that Microsoft ignored a ton of the FTC's requests to the point that that FTC had to do a motion to compel, and that was granted? Don't you think it's interesting that the FTC had to do that, and seemingly we're seeing way more during their hearing? This is a preliminary hearing. FTC is digging up stuff that shouldn't be applicable to the case, just an opinion. This is a witch hunt for political furthering. No, that's hyperbolically charged grandstanding. That's not true at all. I've not found any evidence that has anything to do with political furthering. That's a load of BS. They were neck and neck, and then Q4 of 2022 hit. The judge will decide to approve or deny the FTC injunction today. Yeah, I mean, Bobby Kotick basically said if they get their preliminary injunction, Activision will probably walk away from the deal. Which the optics on that's kind of weird. Donnie put this in the Discord. A paragraph from the CAT refusal to the CMA today. We consider that the CMA has not paid sufficient attention to the true public interest in this case, which is the rapid resolution of the Microsoft notification. The CMA has not attempted to explore, either with Microsoft or with the court, ways in which the burden can be eased. In expedited proceedings such as this, the court stands ready to assist where it can to ensure that the inappropriate burdens are removed. It is disappointing that such a dialogue did not take place in this case. Closing arguments are today. Yeah, I think the decision's next week from the judge. I think closing arguments are today, and the decision's next week, I believe. Political furthering? It's an American company. You'd think they'd be on board with pretty much whatever they want. The FTC's made it clear that they want to stand in the way of this level of tech consolidation. I missed a super chat from Broken Messiah. Microsoft is so anti-exclusive, the only thing they did with Redfall was make it an exclusive. Yeah, I really, really liked this tweet earlier today. I put it in the Discord. I loved this tweet. I really thought this was an amazing one. This one comes from... Where is it? No. Here it is. What is truly anti-competitive here? Sony cannot approach Bethesda for games anymore, yet Square Enix offered Xbox exclusivity for Final Fantasy XVI. Square Enix does exclusive games for both Nintendo and PlayStation all the time, and they are generally successful. Kind of interesting. Activision never needed to be bought, so I'm not sure how this whole situation actually even evolved, except it seems like Spencer owed Kotick favor. That's total bull. LOL, LOL, LOL. I mean, it's a matter of public record that Square went to Xbox with Final Fantasy. Microsoft passed. Microsoft passed on Spider-Man. Those are two games that always get invoked here. Well, you have Spider-Man and Final Fantasy. Yeah, the companies that own those properties shopped them around and went with the best deal. I think that's where people really miss this. They really miss what's going on. Publishers have property, and that property is really valuable. And a lot of these publishers go to these platforms and seek the best deal they can get. See, everybody forgets that part. And they think that these poor little publishers are out here, getting smacked around and abused and used by Xbox and Sony, and it's this tug of war. No. Did you see what happened with Call of Duty? Bobby Kotick went to Xbox and said, pay us more money or we're not going to put it on your platform. And Microsoft said, okay. And companies like Square Enix are like, hey, listen, Final Fantasy is a really valuable piece of property. We would like to know if you have an offer here. What's your offer? And they end up landing with Sony. The same thing happened with Spider-Man. Marvel's shopping the IP around. They go to Microsoft. Microsoft says, we're focusing on our own property right now. And they decline. And it ends up going to Sony. That's the thing that people don't understand, is the property owners of these games are commonly the ones that initiate these deals. But Sony's the one that has established and defined market competition using exclusives. Really? Another gifted member from DK Baker. You don't happen to think that companies that establish themselves over the years and have really good pieces of property and really good games aren't approaching these platforms and seeking a really good deal? You don't think that's happening ever? I can't imagine being Microsoft and not locking up Spider-Man just because it's Spider-Man. How stupid are you? The amount of money that Microsoft has, the amount of money they have, there must have been a timeline contingency in that contract. There must have been a timeline contingency to be like, if you buy this, it needs to come to market in this amount of time. I can't imagine not just buying that up just so Sony can't have it. It's frickin' Spider-Man. I just think it points to ineptitude on Microsoft's part. Like I said, I think they're bad at this. They're really, really bad at this. Listen to me. Companies make mistakes, okay? Bobby Kotick admitted that. He admitted he made a mistake. He overlooked the Nintendo Switch, and he thinks it was a bad decision on his part. There's a lot of money that was probably lost because of that. Right? And looking at Microsoft and their history of bad decisions with their games, their ecosystem, their technology, blaming Sony just doesn't compel me at all. Their decision to enter this generation of games and make the Series S their primary console, their goal to sway the tide with a loss lead subscription model, a day-and-date subscription model, I think those are all bad decisions. As a consumer, as somebody who's done game business analysis for almost, a decade, I look at that and say, I think those are all bad decisions. And when you want to turn around and you want to blame things on Sony, I'm not compelled by that at all. I look at Nintendo. Nintendo's doing just fine. They're not affected by what Sony's doing. Thank you, Hellfire, for subscribing over there on Kick. If you guys are watching on Kick, make sure you hit the follow button. We're nearing 400 followers. And we have 25 subscribers over there. Right now, we're 15 away from hitting 50 members on the day. We had a huge day yesterday. Every 25 members, I have to gift 5. Yo, it's good, Brown Excellence. But Jim said Nintendo's not competition. You see, chat? You see? It's catch-22. I love that. That's my new favorite one. Really drive home that point that somehow Nintendo is doing just fine. But they're not competition. Oh, Interesting. So that means Microsoft's not in third place. It means they're in second place. And being in second place, not justification for a merger and consolidation of this level. I appreciate you conceding that the FTC's correct, that Nintendo's not a direct competitor and shouldn't be included in this equation. Appreciate that concession. Any chance Lono can refer to kick as the kickity? You almost got me to say it. You almost got me to say it. That was really good, John. You know why it was so good? It was kickity, and then it slammed the next word on the bottom line. I almost did it. So Sony lied to regulators then? When? About what? Y'all realize Sony owns Insomniac now because Microsoft passed on Spider-Man, and Insomniac got the license, and Sony buys Insomniac after Spider-Man. Yeah, it's amazing when you actually look at the timeline. Like, the narrative that, like, you know, PlayStation does all these acquisitions and does all these deals, and it's like, they bought so many of these studios when they were small. They bought so many of these studios after the fact. Is your gut telling you one way or another this deal's going through? My personal opinion is, given everything that's come to light, I feel like the FTC gets their preliminary injunction. That's not even a block. That's just the opportunity to do more. I don't know how you could look at everything that's come to light and be like, nope, no, Xbox has made it very clear there's no reason to look further. The merits of the case is what's being decided. You understand that, right? We're not deciding whether or not the FTC can block. We're deciding whether or not the FTC can get their preliminary injunction to investigate further. I believe that has been substantially answered, that yes, there's merits to the preliminary injunction. Is there merits for block? We're not there yet. 125, I don't know what that is in my currency. Juan Star says, what Microsoft wants is Game Pass everywhere, so any game who will not do Game Pass day one won't sell, forcing them to release Game Pass day one even without an offer. Hang on. Insomniac got the license, huh? Oh, for Spider-Man? I mean, the story that we read was that they were shopping around the license for Spider-Man and Microsoft passed. The license, I believe, went to Sony. Insomniac builds it as per the deal or whatever, and then they bought Insomniac later. I might have misspoke reading chat. That's, in my understanding, that's how it went, is that they were shopping around Spider-Man. Microsoft passed, said we're focusing on our own property. PlayStation gets it. I think they brokered the deal with Insomniac. Insomniac builds it. Insomniac is purchased after the fact. The super chat's roughly $3 Canadian. Okay, thanks for the 3 spot. I don't know why it doesn't just automatically convert it to dollars. On the back end, it does. Like, my chat revenue goes up by a certain amount. If I don't look up there fast enough, I won't see how much it goes up by. They made Spider-Man right after Sunset Overdrive. They don't need to justify a merger. It's the regulator's job to prove why they shouldn't have it. What place Microsoft is in is irrelevant. Part of Microsoft's argumentation. Lono, Disney was shopping around Marvel's IP, any one of them. Sony chose Spider-Man. No. That's not how it was told. There's literally a guy that talked about it. The guy that talked about it, he said, it has emerged Microsoft turned down the offer to partner up with Marvel to produce games based on Spider-Man, an offer that sold over 25 million copies for Sony. Executive Vice President and head of Marvel Games, Jay Ong, had meetings with Sony and Microsoft. Ong said that when the deal was made to walk away from Activision, the company inquired, what are you going to do with this IP after you get it back? He said, I'm going to find a better home for it. According to On, Activision's reply was, good luck finding your unicorn. Per Ong, Microsoft wanted to focus on its own IP at the time and pass on the offer. Ong recalls a meeting with 2 executives from Sony. I said, we have a dream that is possible, that we could beat Arkham and have one game at least, and maybe multiple games that could drive adoption to our platform. He was right on the money as Spider-Man is sold. Yeah, they were shopping Spider-Man. I reported on this. I remember reading all of that. I always love how people get it all backwards and wrong. They were shopping Spider-Man. That's correct. Insomniac chose to work on Spider-Man. They had to choose a choice of any Marvel property. False. I just read the guy that was shopping Spider-Man. You guys have it wrong. Literally, the guy from Marvel is saying, I was shopping Spider-Man. He didn't say, we can make any game we want. What should we do? He's like, no, we're taking Spider-Man. Who wants it? After following all this, do you think the FTC has a case? Microsoft hasn't done anything different than Sony has done, and Sony hasn't been questioned. Sony's not trying to consolidate $70 billion of the market. Sony's never done anything at this scope. That's another false narrative. Sony is a fraction of the size of Microsoft. Microsoft is the second largest company in the world, and they're trying to consolidate $70 billion of a market that they're not doing well in. Yes, I believe the FTC has a case. The merits of this is not to block. The merits of this is whether or not they're granted a preliminary injunction to look further into this. Like, how's that article wrong? It's quoting the dude who sold the IP rights? Activision asked Marvel on their plans for the Spidey IP. Marvel said it would be finding a better home. Right. Like, the guy that's doing these interviews, the guys that's talking about it's like, yeah, we were finding a better home for Spider-Man. I think the story was told differently by Insomniac. Well, now hang on. They shopped Spider-Man around. Sony may have had rights to multiple superheroes and approached Insomniac and said, which do you want to choose? That might be true. That doesn't falsify what the guy said. Does that make sense? Like, he may have ultimately landed at Sony, and Sony's like, okay, now we have a couple of different superheroes we can do. Insomniac, what do you want to do? Which one do you want? We just got another one, right? They clearly got Wolverine at some point. Again, this is all speculation. The man himself said they were shopping Spider-Man specifically around. He was not shopping any Marvel superhero. Insomniac pitched it to Marvel Games and it was approved. Broken Messiah with a 5 spot. Add up all the public costs of acquisition Sony has ever made. It's not even close to this one deal. That's exactly right. Correct. Both can be true. Yeah, like, we may not be refuting each other. We may be just talking about two different ends of how this happened. This man's like, we want to take Spidey and shop him around. Microsoft says no thank you. It ends up over here. Then Insomniac is asked, well, what do you want to do? And they're like, we think we can make a great Spider-Man game. Perfect. We've got the license. Sony bought it and they farmed out the production. There you go. There you go. We're not contradicting each other. When Insomniac had the choice, it was Wolverine, not Spider-Man. They own Spider-Man and X-Men film rights, among other things, hence Marvel not being able to use the term mutant for a long time. Right, they had to say, what do they say in the one Avengers movie? They say enhanced in the field. Enhanced in the field. Altered? What they said altered in the one show, right? And then they said enhanced in the one movie. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they said altered. And then in the one movie, they said enhanced. 2 spot from Omar. Microsoft and Activision left with web on their face. Oh, gosh. Shut up, Omar. Xbox fans complain about Spider-Man, but it would never have existed without Sony. Thank you, Omar, for the gifted member. Pushing us a little bit closer to 50. All right, let's, guys, get a little 4. Get a little 4 streak going. Nice and slow. Walk this to 40 and let somebody slam home the the 10 spot layup. That's what I'm saying, says Corey. Sony got the deal, and Sony gave Insomniac the choice on a number of Marvel IP. Insomniac chose Spider-Man. Okay, so we were just passing in the night. We weren't arguing. We were just talking about two different parts of the deal. Sure. Xbox exists because Microsoft wanted to stop PlayStation's growth and success. 25 years later, that's still the goal. It didn't change. Behind Microsoft isn't in it for the art or the passion, and it shows. Yeah, at a total pragmatic breakdown of the business, I don't think... Rissick's like, I don't need you guys to do the 4 spot. I'll just do the 10 spot anyway. Slams it all the way to 46 on the day. Thank you so much, Rissick. Well, see, now you guys have to do a 10 gifted member train. That's the rules. I don't make them. That's what Rissick said. I'm kidding around. Again, just a reminder, I usually don't do this. Yo, Big Mo! Big Mole is an example of how you can come in here and debate and disagree and discuss without taking a cheap shot, right? Thank you for gifting a member, Big Mole. No, wait. He gifted 5. I thought that was a single. Hang on. That takes us to 51. That's the go-ahead. 51 rolls it over to the next one of 75. Stonespire gifts 1 and takes it to 52. See, we can have a big member day even though it gets spicy. I appreciate you, Big Mole. I appreciate people modeling that, right? Appreciate that. Showing people that you can come in here and you can be a part of what we do, and you do not have to agree with everything I say. We've had a good couple of days. We've had 97 people click on my Ripped Apparel link. 97. So if anybody orders, just please let me know or send me a screenshot of the order. We want to make sure that it's properly tracking on the back end. I'm not pressuring anybody to order. I'm just saying, hey, if you do happen to order, let me know. It is a new affiliate. We've not worked with them before. Big Mole 1 is his name. No wonder you thought it's just 1. Oh, I saw the 1. That's probably what it was. Yeah. I now owe you guys 10 members, so thank you so much for another strong day for the channel. That sub's required on YouTube for me. The FTC is currently questioning the Xbox CFO Tim Stewart, who mentioned at an investor conference in 2020 that Bethesda content should show up first, better, or best on Xbox. This plays into Sony's fear for degraded Call of Duty exclusivity. Well, it's amazing that I found that quote and made it a part of my coverage, and now, what did you mean by this, Tim? I'll be ordering very soon. I love the turtle shirts. They have really, really good shirts. Just make sure you click on my link before you do it. It should count for the next 45 days if you end up ordering a shirt from Ripped Apparel, as long as you do that. What's the most gifted members at once? We had a day where we had like over 500 gifted members, I believe. When we get 30 days back around from that, that's going to be pain. That's going to be pain. Our current record for members is like 4,700 or something. It's something along those lines. So, appreciate you guys so much keeping those numbers high. Currently, the member count is holding very strong in like the 4,000s. You guys actually got really close to 5,000. I will be shaving my beard in July. You guys did unlock that. That will be happening. We're still trying to figure out how to do the reverse seer thing that Stonespire wanted. You currently have 4,200 members. That's incredible. We're really transparent with that. We're really thankful and transparent with the number of people who upgrade to VIP as well. We have a very amazing community here, so I like to let you guys know where you stand and where we stand as a community. Currently, we have 309 VIPs. If we hit 350, Creature and I will play another game. I forget what game we decided on. Darth Biscuit, question. What properties other than superheroes do you think fit Xbox? Thank you for the 5-spot, Darth Biscuit. I actually think Doom is a great fit for Xbox. I do. I would love to see id Software take over Halo and give it the Doom treatment. You know how Doom came from Doom to Doom and Doom Eternal? I want to see that done with Halo. I think Halo needs to evolve past itself, and I think id Software could be the team to do it. I actually am really hopeful that Hellblade 2 will prove that, you know, third-person action-adventure games can do quite well on the Xbox. I actually love those games, so I'm a little biased there. I believe Gears, the next Gears, could be very, very good if they really push the engine far. I think Gears is good property. Gears is iconic property. So, yeah, trying to think of some of the others. You are a Sony pony. Okay. That's so timely. I love stream delay. I just said all that about really good things that Xbox could do, good property that they have, and how well it could fit. And you're in here mindlessly spamming Sony pony like a child whose toy got broken. What a sad state it must be to exist like that. I would say it's pitiable, but it's not. You're an embarrassment to gamers. You're just an embarrassment. Zuby not having it. Breaking down the statements and comments that many news outlets and journalists conveniently stayed quiet from Microsoft this past week and others, and truly asinine statements from Microsoft. Microsoft says it hates exclusivity, but has done it as exclusivity ever since Xbox was created with its software, even PC exclusive software. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. Thank you, Zuby, for zeroing in on that. Yep. Phil Spencer on exclusives. Yep. Hang on. Amazing thread. Touched on so much of the false narrative Microsoft this morning. Amazing thread. I touched on so much of the false narrative from Microsoft this morning. This is a great collection to read over. Yeah, I'm going to avoid reading it on the stream, but I already see where he's headed, and I already like it. Sega's defending Game Pass, saying they have a better relationship with Microsoft than either Sony or Nintendo. Somebody DM me that. Cool. Cool. Reforge Gaming just said, you're busy holding the line instead of holding a controller. True. Activision threatened to pull Call of Duty. The fact that they even feel they can make that threat shows how weak Microsoft is. I wouldn't say that shows how weak Microsoft is, Broken Messiah. I would say it shows how strong Call of Duty is. Yo, the commander with a white badge, a brand new member, gifts 10 members to the community. That level of generosity from a brand new member, I love to see that. If you just got a gifted member, consider paying it forward. Let's have a pay it forward train. You can gift one member as a thank you to the commander. That you love to see that. A white badge gifting a 10 bomb. That's crazy. They didn't swear under oath for ABK games. They swore for Call of Duty. I'm not sure what you mean. Lono, do you think Xbox will buy Sega even if they lose the FTC? You know, it's funny that Sega's saying that publicly. Microsoft has made it clear throughout this that they are they don't have a problem. Hang on a second. I got to do some quick math here. We're 18 minutes away from when I want to end, and we're 15 and 7. Shoot. Hang on a minute. We might have to go really quickly. We might have 7 minutes. We might have to bounce in 7 minutes. I have a reaction video to a really, really bad Final Fantasy 16 review. It's actually quite comical. But Microsoft made it very clear that they are not done doing acquisitions. And So I could see them really wanting to snag Sega because they need a foothold in the Asian market, and Sega could help with that, right? Final Fantasy 16 bad review debrief. This review is gonna make you mad. This review gonna make you mad. Okay. Yeah. And I'll set this for 12:45, and we'll set it to loop back to this. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if whether or not they get Activision Blizzard, I actually think they would still. Who did the review? The Gamer. Somebody who played Final Fantasy 16 for a whopping 4 hours came to a bunch of very, very strong conclusions about it. You guys have 5 minutes. If you want to try to hit 75, you only need 13 more. 3 singles and a 10 bomb would do it. You have 5 minutes to hit 75. I will give the 15 that I owe you in the premiere, so let's get it going. I'm scheduling the premiere right now. The Commander comes in again off the top rope and does a 10 bomb and pushes us to 72. He says 75, no problem. Not a problem at all. A brand new member with the white badge, just showing that level of generosity. You absolutely love to see it. That's amazing. It is amazing to see. I'm scheduling this. Redirect to that. Save that. There's a single from Lone Wolf. This needs to go in 4 minutes. 12:30. Schedule. Another one. 7. No, there's 3. Hang on. We got our 3, but then we got 5. That pushes it to 80. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, that's a 20 layup. Is somebody going to do it? Stonespire with 1. Rissick with 5. That takes us to 86. There's no 20 bomb layup now. It's been taken away. You guys are too generous and much too fast. I'm going to owe you guys a bunch of members when we go over to this Final Fantasy 16 reaction premiere. You have 4 minutes before we head over there. Thank you guys so much for another insane day on the channel. I love that you guys wait until we're at the end of the stream, so it's all the loyalists and none of the hate watchers. It's perfect strategy. I love it. Love it. And there it is! The 20 bomb from Mitch! I love saying that name. Slams it home to 106, bumps it to 107 is King Mike. He grabs on to the rocket ship. That is Mitch. I'm getting my names mixed up. Mike and Mitch and Rissick and all the different names of people that are being generous, and puts us to 107 out of 125. I now owe you 20 members. Sega not for sale yet. Hey, you guys over there watching on Kick, I got to end the Kick stream. Come over to YouTube and watch this Final Fantasy 16 premiere and then hang out with the members. All right. Shut that stream down. An echo chamber. If you think my stream's an echo chamber, Jaffe, the incompletionist, just stop coming to the stream then. Just stop coming. Like, Big Mole just gifted a sub a little bit ago, and he and I debated for a large portion of the morning. He did. I primarily focus on and debate with people who disagree with me. That is literally the antithesis of an echo chamber. So if you're claiming this is an echo chamber, just shove it and leave, bro. Look at the generosity. Look at the community. If that's what you think, you're not welcome here. Just step out. 11 more members coming in. That's 18. 118, I'm sorry. 118. 7 away. We got 2 minutes. We got to get out of here in 2 minutes. Ika Gang with the 14 spot. Just realized the delay between Kick and YouTube is about 3 minutes. Yeah, Kick's a little bit faster on the low latency. We run normal latency on YouTube. That's probably why. The FTC is currently questioning. I already read that. Cammy bumps the line by 119. One more. Madam's the line. One more would make it a 5-bomb dunk. We'd be at 120. We're switching gears, so I can't get out of the chair. You're fine. It's fine. It's fine. Another one from Lone Wolf. 120. There it is. Somebody slamming home for 5. Let's get the frick out of here. Raptor with the single. Raptor with the single. Takes it to 121. There it is. Another single from William Lewis. It's 122. And there's the 5 from Mitch. 127 on the day as we get the heck out of here. Listen, you guys can keep gifting over in the premiere. You can keep gifting members in the premiere. Right now, I owe you 25 members. Hold, stop. I'm going to spam chat with the link. You can either ride the redirect or click the link. If you don't go over to this new video, it's a premiere. It's a terrible review of Final Fantasy 16, and I react to it. They only played the game for 4 hours. If you have to go to the main page, it'll be the featured video. And then when we're done, all you new members can come to a members-only debrief. I'll see you over there. Another one from Homie Juan Kenobi, the greatest name. Another one takes it to 128 and a 5. That's 133. 133. All right. That means you need 20. You need 17 to get to 150. Go keep gifting in the premiere. I'll see you over there.